any good acting has behavior with it.
Nate, why? Why such bitterness? What have I done to you? Get out! You're no nephew of mine. As far as I'm concerned, you're as dead as that wretch Cermak.
You have to embellish the words with a certain amount of gravity. Because we're talking about things that are really important here, that are kind of secret. There's a natural kind of darkness when you talk about noir. You know, it's great. I love it.
Although edited for television, tonight's thriller contains scenes of suspense and violence which may be unsuitable for young viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, Imagination Connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and, of course, the perhaps never-to-be-defined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, moi, Robert Meyer Burnett. I'm, of course, Rob Casting at you Imagination Connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations, episode 1111. Today is July 1st. I just wanted to, sort of sad thing, I don't want to bum anybody out, but I felt it important to mention this. Today is July 1st. It would have been my younger sister Susie's 57th birthday today. She passed away last October. In a very, in an ugly way. And rather than talk about things like addiction and losing your will to live and all of those things, which I could talk about, I prefer to lead by example. And I'm in no hurry to shuffle off this mortal coil. I will miss my sister very much. She was a bright light, and she and I had a hell of a fun time together. I think the most fun time my sister and I ever had was my grandmother, Sissy Schoenfeld. Shirley was her name, but everybody called her Sissy. Sissy was my second grandmother. My first grandmother passed away younger than me when she was 56 in the mid-70s of breast cancer, unfortunately. And then my grandfather hooked back up with a childhood sweetheart, the sister of one of his best friends, and married Sissy. And Sissy was appalled in 1990 when she found out that Susie and I, my sister, she's Sissy, my sister Susie and I, that we had never been to New York City. And so she was from New York City, and she was appalled we'd never been there. So my grandmother just set us up, put a lot of spending money in each one of our pockets, sent us to New York for a week, and set us loose on the city. And my sister and I tore it up. We saw a Broadway show. We just saw a great show called City of Angels. That was kind of a noir thing. I'm surprised it never got turned into a movie. But we got to see that, so I got to see a real Broadway show. And then to tell you a little bit about what my sister was like when we first set out, and she was like me. We'd get up early and leave and stay up all night, barely sleep. I said to my sister, I go, we're in New York City. We have no itinerary. Where is the first place that you want to go? And without missing a beat, she turned and looked at me and she said, Harlem. And so we went, and we had a great time. We went looking for soul food. We went looking for some neighborhood bars. We went looked for some people, and we had a hell of a time. And that was our first day. So I will always miss my sister, and this is the first birthday since she was alive that she missed. She's survived by her two sons, Peyton, who just graduated from high school, and Logan, who's in his early 20s. And interestingly enough, Logan called me today and asked, he said, where was the house? He was working on Mercer Island, my hometown, where I grew up, a suburb of Seattle. and he said, where was your house? Where was your childhood house? Because he was working on, he's a contractor, he's apprenticing to be an electrician. And he said, where was your house? Where'd you grow up? And he'd been there probably, or just he'd seen it, but he wasn't born when we lived there. And I told him, and it turns out that he was literally around the corner from our house, like within, 100 yards of our house, which was wild. And it was funny. He was in front of Barty Martin's house. Barty Martin, kid younger than me, my sister's age, who went on to be I believe he was, I don't know if he's the bass guitarist or the lead guitarist for the band Candlebox. And that's where Logan, my nephew, was today. So shout out to my sister. She is missed. She was a bright light that was put out way too soon. But anyway, that said, I will soldier on for you, sister, and continue to make you proud. I hope. So here's, I can't get over this SUPERGIRL thing. SUPERGIRL worldwide grossed less than $70 million over the weekend. I mean, this isn't just a bad box office result. It's a catastrophic box office result. And before I get into it, got a couple of articles. Remember, the articles I read are always down in the description by the tip link, and you can see the two. But I got a letter from an old friend of the channel who, it's a funny thing when you have a YouTube channel, especially one like this channel is 8 years old. I've been doing Robservations for 8 years. And that's a long time. I mean, that's like 2 full sets of people going through high school from their freshman year to graduation. I feel like a teacher. 2 full sets of high school, which is crazy, people going through high school. But one of the things that happens when you have a YouTube channel is people come and they hang out and you interact with them and you get to know who they are. And you tend to think of your audience as friends, because what I try and do, all those pictures I show at the beginning, these nicknames, I didn't make these nicknames up. People hung them on me, and what I thought was fun as the show develops, as you do a show, and then people set in artwork. That artwork is all done, and one of the guys who did a couple of those, actually 2 of the guys that do the pieces of artwork have passed away. That's why I didn't have the heart to take that artwork away. But I didn't make up these nicknames for myself, and other people made the art. So it's a way to interact with your audience. And when you read people's letters and you do interact with people and you do have member calls and you put names to faces, people come and they go. And there are people that wrote you letters, and then suddenly they stop writing letters. People move on, and you can't take anything like that personally. But I got a letter today that it's from someone in Japan who has written me before, but I haven't heard from them in a long time. But this was I thought, an interesting letter. And maybe it's because there's a cultural difference a little bit in terms of the wordage and how it's, I just thought this was great. And I thought it was great for this topic. So I'm going to start the show with this letter. And it's from Marcelo Sakuma. Dear Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, greetings from Japan. This is not my first letter sent to you, probably not the last, as I enjoy hearing your audience's letters read on your channel, their points of view, along with your commentary. This time I come again as a normie, less an imagination connoisseur, more of a regular media consumer who happens to notice certain aspects of modern media and truly would love to listen to your thoughts. How to fix Hollywood? The answer to that $1 billion question may be easier than anyone thinks. And you're probably wondering how a regular person could possibly know it. Well, worth a full 45-degree erection? No semi, no quarters, the full truth. It all comes to the fact that we came from hunter-gatherers. Not being misogynistic, it's a general fact men are engineers and women are embellishers. In order to survive, men solved problem after problem to augment our lifespan, while women were in charge of nurture, comfort, and aesthetics. Currency was created to exchange values, which basically is how to trade fairly each other's efficiency or extraordinary results of a man's engineering skills. We as a species admire and follow those able to solve, create, and eliminate barriers. Now you know I'm heading. Yes, the full erection. What's the common adjective bestowed upon the characters that we love the best? Luke, Indy, Kirk, Ripley. All awe us over the fact that they were written as problem solvers. The scenes burned inside our minds. Luke practicing, blindfolded, learning the Force. Indy measuring the fertility idol and placing it with sand in a bag. Mirror, mirror. Kirk convincing Mirror Spock that the dimension of his regime was fundamentally illogical and unsustainable. Ripley opening that airlock and sending the xenomorph straight to alien Romulus. These characters are breaking barriers on the go in each story, along a production team that created and presented incredible visuals that grabbed our imagination, each director producing unforgettable shots and editing images in motion that became a part of our species' history. We became fans not of the movie itself, but of the amazing engineering shown by these movies. It is inherited in our DNA to respect the power of creation and efficacy. But here lies the problem of today's Hollywood. A bridge is built to solve the problem of the river as a barrier. That's it. No more or less. Build the bridge, make it efficient, make it useful. If it works, it will achieve respect and awe. A member of your audience said Jaws was boring. But Jaws is a masterpiece of engineering. You said it might have been outdated, but never boring. I agree. The Orca is not the same boat you see leaving the docks. You can literally measure the angle it floats, the burn marks, hell, even the yellow drums give you immersive time. Spielberg, as you described, used every trick in the book shooting that nightmare of a movie. The story is all we need. A swimming man eating problem. 3 characters, each an engineer with a different skill set to solve that problem. Jaws has wrinkled sexagenarian parents of the deceased 12-year-old Kintner boy. It has Captain Quint overheating the boat on purpose like a psychotic monkey on cocaine, and the worst fabric for a suit I've ever seen in my entire life. But besides these flaws, the engineering showcase is enough to awe and keep a mind running on cortisol. Jaws being called boring is not a generational problem per se. It's engineering no longer being the aspect of today's society that provokes respect. Embellishment now is the main dish. And what a bad tasting dish to swallow. Why does new Star Wars fail? Why does Star Trek Discovery fail? Because these stories show characters that are not engineers. Au contraire, the girl bosses wearing plot armor are designed to show a path of less resistance, therefore superficial, and not deserving of respect. And if you cannot respect it, you cannot place value on it, correct? And that's how to fix Hollywood, to select stories and filmmakers who are truly engineers. No matter using tools like AI, 3D projectors, or physical props, the tools are not important. The engineering and the cunning way to show audiences how problems are solved is the literal fixing. I just watched Michael and loved it. The movie demonstrates exactly what I wrote above. The character solves problems, has skills, the voice and the moves, that conquer success and his space and culture, and by his own way solves his solitude caring for animals and sick children. That's engineering. That's how you make a character deserve your respect. You engage with the character's deeper motives, suffering, and cheer for the victories. The director, from Antoine Training Day Fuqua, makes Jafar Jackson look like he can dance and sing as well as his uncle, and the IMAX experience was a great attempt to emulate a Michael Jackson live show. Our chairs inside the theater vibrated with the bass. Michael Jackson toured with custom-built speaker arrays powered by huge subwoofers and high-wattage amplifiers. Engineering. Flaws? The Bubbles CGI the Bubbles CGI chimpanzee was as horrible as one may imagine, but I believe that was to represent how an emotional Michael Jackson would see an animal, as an expressive, empathetic human friend substitute. The story lacks real-life facts, but come on, you seriously want to watch a movie showing creepy behind-the-curtain real facts? No, sir. I was there for the moonwalking and the extremely rare vocal recording they played us through the spectacle. And besides, every single time Coleman Domingo showed up on screen, I was bursting with laughter. I think the last time I had that scary of a parent on screen happened in Mommy Dearest. Maybe the movie should be called Michael No More Wire Hangers Ever. You asked us to rewatch Logan's Run with an immersive mind. Why? Well, the movie is also a masterpiece of engineering. There are always a problem to be solved as the story progresses, and sorry, anyone who looked at the first shots inside the dome with those prism chrome walls and running shuttles enamored with the whole movie. Box is an ass of a costume, but so what? Give me Box any day over Rhoda the Hutt. Embellishment and semantics are the biggest problem in Hollywood. Embellishment makes a movie sink when superficial aesthetics take over functionality. Semantics make the movie stop on its track when autistic details and modern sensibility take over the story. Engineering first, embellishment later. If anyone wants to debate this point, just search, are puzzles popular? Today, Rob, newspaper puzzles, piece puzzles, crossword puzzles, Wordle, mind-tickling gamers are as popular as ever. It shows that we humans were, are, and always will be searching for problems to solve and respecting those who solve problems. Star Trek's Monster of the Week was nothing but problems to be solved, and how surprising each member of the crew was able to move on the board to solve it, including the red shirts. You are enjoying For All Mankind in Star City because of the problems the show presents. I was thrilled when the moon landing carried a communication blackout. I was questioning the sabotage of the Luna 17 equipment. Women written and produced shows like Deadlock are a perfect example of women as master engineers. What a beautiful and funny lesbian show. The gender is not the issue. The country is not the issue. The issue is to put aside feelings, subjective politics, and decorating urges, letting respect-worthy art to take over. And if the production requires feelings, subjective politics, and decorating urges to be showcased, let them be a problem or a solution, not just wasted opportunities to express agendas or propaganda. The pattern of movies today, where stories have nothing but lazy characters gliding over difficulties, patronizing social political issue monologues, digital fast imagery over practical, more efficient effects, are the reason that we do not want to pay for the entertainment, making the villains so relatable and tame that there is no obstacle to overcome. The river is so shallow, a bridge is no longer needed, making the hero dubious on his actions. Now the bridge is a problematic device. Build a bridge and kill the small tiny fishes. Or when a movie is so hopeless and nihilistic, there's no light from it. What's the point of a problem so absolute nothing will ever fix it? Not a river, but an ocean to cross. Hollywood is easy to fix, and I am positive it will be fixed. The blame game does not work here. My country gave the world Godzilla, and most recently, on a budget of approximately 10 to 15 million US dollars, Godzilla -1. There is no crying over a damaged, hopeless Hollywood when Japan has shown leveled cities rebuilt and now thriving. Apologies for the long letter. I hope you and your audience may discuss the subject further. My appreciation for your contribution to culture and enthusiasm toward our loved fandoms, and I wish you lots of unforgettable moments at the upcoming San Diego Comic-Con. And that comes from our friend in Japan. I think he's right. I think the idea that our heroes, whoever they may be, are engineers that are solving problems. In the case he brought up Ripley. I mean, one of the interesting things is that, the crew of the Nostromo went to solve a problem. They thought that there might have been someone in distress. And they went to LV-426. They landed. They found the alien derelict. And it turns out the person that was in distress was Kane, when he stuck his face in one of the most horrifying scenes. I mean, when I was a kid seeing Alien, I think I was 12. I might have not turned 12 yet. But when I saw Alien, that moment where it's one of my favorite physical effects in any movie. And it's when the egg opens. And it looks so realistic and so organic. And those beautiful, what is it? Is it Mobius? Did Mobius design those suits? Or was it Geiger? I don't know if it was Geiger. Who, H.R. Giger designed the suits. That moment when those eggs open and Kane sticks his head over that egg, I remember. I'm like, don't do that. You know, I was just like, and it was so great the way it was done. And that Alien is a perfect movie. I don't care what anyone says. I know people like Aliens better. I get it, but Alien is a perfect movie. And but then what ends up happening is when the xenomorph starts to run rampant across inside the Nostromo, it becomes a problem to solve, and it's fascinating. The crew just doesn't know what they're up against, and they know Ash knew that there was no solving this problem. But then if you think about all of the great movies, the James Bond problem solver, you know, Indiana Jones has to get the Ark. He's always trying to get something. And I think that's a really interesting observation about heroes are engineers. And they are people that solve problems. And the great heroes, it doesn't matter whether they're male or female. We are, like, I love legal thrillers. I love legal thrillers because there's a problem, there's a court case to surmount. And I think that's why doctors shows and cop shows and lawyer shows have always been staples of television, because they have a built-in, easily understood conflict that needs to be surmounted. One side or another. How do you fix the problem? And watching human ingenuity is, I think, inherently interesting, because we're learning something about the human animal at the same time we're watching a character that we could admire solve a problem. And one of the things I've always loved about Star Trek is, in fact, that I'm watching, well, in the case of classic Star Trek, that's going to be celebrating its 60th anniversary in September. One of the great things about Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, especially when I was a little kid, is I looked at these characters, I'm like, I want to grow up and be as competent as these people are. These people are elite. They're the best of the best. And isn't that what we want to be? And it seems like in the modern age, people have decided, well, it's too hard to be that. You know, let's be in the middle of the road and then still consider ourselves exceptional. We'll figure out ways we can tell ourselves things where we can make ourselves feel better because we can join various groups. We can have new names for ourselves. And it's just another way of not being excellent. Because being excellent is really, really, really difficult. And it requires dedication and lots of hard work. And I think that's one of the problems of the modern day. I really do believe that. And you know, everybody gets to feel good now. We have changed language. Language. How can language have a word is just a word? Oh, I know some words are violence, but how can they be violence? They're only violence when you personally are hurt by a word that somebody says. Now, I understand if people are trying to be unkind. I don't like hearing unkind words. I hear them every day from various quarters on the internet directed straight at my heart. But you know what? I don't care. I know that I don't need to care about those things, but I've developed a thick skin. But there are some words that I see people wielding in our culture today that are designed simply to make people feel better about themselves and about one another without earning anything to make themselves really feel good. It's almost like a temporary fix. And I don't understand that. I don't understand that, because deep down inside, you might feel good for a few minutes, but you know what the underlying problems are. You know if you're not great at something including being a human being, no amount of platitudes or nice language is really going to make you or convince you that you're actually great or a good person. You can only do that by engineering your own life, engineering the life for yourself that you deserve through hard work and ingenuity, solving the problems that you believe or you have that are in front of you, solving your own problems. Unfortunately, my own sister couldn't, and those problems became insurmountable in her mind, and so she decided that she would take an easier way out. And I object to that strenuously. I wish there was something more I could have done for her, that anybody could have done for her, that her children tried and tried and tried. She wouldn't even listen to them. But, in this little time we have spending on the planet, I'd rather engineer things and make things. Now, that brings me to Hollywood, back to Hollywood. And there's a really interesting article before I get into Supergirl, and I want to start with this. James Wallace sent me this. He's in the industry, and I probably would have come across it, but I really appreciate people I know send me articles a lot, and I thank you. Please don't stop sending me articles, because if I read so many things every day, if I miss something. But this is a great article. Obviously, one of the great success stories over the last decade is Taylor Sheridan. Taylor Sheridan, the man who created, of course, Yellowstone and all of its spin-offs, Landman, Lioness, and many others. The man who wrote Sicario for Denis Villeneuve. The man who wrote and directed Wind River. And he was a character actor that basically decided to grab the bull by the horns and kick those punks off campus. But there was a great article that I wanted to read because it echoes sentiments that I have and I've been talking about on this show for a long time. Taylor Sheridan gets candid. By the way, this was in the Hollywood Reporter. It was written by Jackie Strauss, and it was published on June 29th. Taylor Sheridan gets candid about critics and Paramount execs. I'm not trying to win Emmys. Man, I can't tell you how much I love this. Taylor Sheridan called into Bill Simmons' podcast from his Wyoming ranch to discuss his new book, How Not to Die in Prison, co-written with Tom Nelson, and his many hit series. And during the extended virtual conversation, the Yellowstone co-creator did not hold back when discussing his feelings about television critics, Paramount and studio executives in general, or Los Angeles. The prolific writer, producer, director of hit series ranging from Landman to 1923 to Tulsa King has been largely snubbed from the Emmy Awards over the years. However, the second season of Landman and the first of the Madison are strong contenders heading into this year's nominations. Many have questioned why Sheridan's shows have been often overlooked, including the Hollywood Reporter. Sheridan's series attract massive viewership and most receive strong reviews, but not all. Sheridan took issue with the critical reviews he'd received for his series over the years, telling Simmons during their wide-ranging Bill Simmons podcast that he admits to rage-baiting reviewers, citing Demi Moore's role in Season 1 of Landman as an example when he was accused of sidelining the megastar. When I met with Demi about that, I said, here's the thing. You are going to be an extra in this show for 7 episodes, and the critics are going to come after me. I'm underutilizing Moore. I can't write for women. All this nonsense, he said, discussing his evolving plans for Moore and Landman. Then, I'm going to kill your husband, played by John Hamm at the end of Season 1, and you're going to have to run the oil company. The critics and me, I don't care what they think, and it annoys the shit out of them that I don't care, but I'll be the first to tell you that there are things that I do that rage bait them a bit, and this is one of them. I could have given him more episodes so they could have realized that flip, but I didn't. I just sent them the first 3, because fuck them, honestly. He went on to explain how her Season 1 role set her up by omission to be someone that the audience already believed couldn't do the job, then assigned to her in Season 2. Not only does she have to overcome every character in this world's opinion of her, but now she has to overcome the audience's predetermined opinion of her. And I let her do it in the first episode of Season 2 with a monologue. By the way, he writes some of the best speeches and monologuing on television. Go look up Billy Bob Thornton talking about windmills and oil. It's incredible. He also cited the season 2 storyline between Michelle Randolph's character and her non-binary roommate, is it Pagan, as one of the few times the network and even some of the actors called me and said, "You sure you don't want to compress the resolution of Pagan and Ainsley? What you do at episode 10 when they become friends, you don't want to put that in episode 9? I said, "No, for exactly the reason you're asking. I want to piss you off a little, and then how dare I, and then watch you the next week and go, oh, you got me." Sheridan, who is leaving Paramount for an overall film and television deal at NBC Universal worth as much as $1 billion starting in 2029, also spoke about how different Paramount was when he signed on to the network compared to today. Once they understood how he, now famously, works as an isolated creative. Sheridan, who is revered for his output, also noted that he knows the ending to all of his shows when making them. "When I first started at Paramount, there was a huge development department," said Sheridan. "There were all these people whose job it was to sit there and give me notes and tell me what to do and how to do it. And after 4 years, they got rid of that department. All of those people got fired because they didn't need them. They had no job because I wouldn't return their calls because they don't do what I do." He went on about how the role of executives at networks have evolved, saying, "Our business at this point is truly governed by these executives because they're the ones that are going to determine whether or not your script is going to go into production. They're going to try and control every element of that." When he made his deal with Paramount, Sheridan said, he told them, "This is not a democracy. There's no committee. You're going to pay me and you're going to give me a bunch of money and I'm going to deliver you these shows. I'm pretty common and I'm going to tell stories that common people are going to understand. That's most of America. You're not going to win no Emmys with me, but I'm not trying to win Emmys. That's not my goal. My goal is to sit somebody on their couch and move them, make them think, make them laugh, scare the shit out of them, excite them. That's what I want to do because that's what I want from a show." Sheridan also cited the unexpected mega success of Yellowstone as kicking off what would lead to the eventual standoff between star Kevin Costner with Sheridan in production. "We originally conceived it together that it was 3 seasons and then the baton is handed," said Sheridan about Costner initially planning to be only in the first 3 seasons of the show. "That was in his contract. In my mind, that's when his youngest son takes over on the show. But the network was so scared of not having Kevin be a part of it, even though Kevin was ready. He was ready to go. He had other things he wanted to do, but he stayed on for another 2 seasons. And that was just because the show was such a behemoth. It was such a big hit. The notion of giving up a hit, it had run out of juice. The notion of giving up a hit before it had run out of juice to squeeze is very foreign to a network." As forever returning to Los Angeles for production for his shows, Sheridan shot down the idea. "The only way you're getting me back to Los Angeles is if it secedes from the Union and I'm drafted into the Army to take it back. I love New York. That city's way, way stronger than whatever political wind is blowing in any direction, right? Whereas L.A. is built on sand." God bless Taylor Sheridan. You know, the entertainment business hasn't really changed much. My second job in the industry that I had, after being the art department production assistant on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, was I was hired by Senior Vice President of Production at Warner Brothers, Bill Young, along with 2 other guys, Jamie Johnson and John Labib. And we were the first of what they called management trainees. Now, what Bill Young's department did was oversee the physical production of all movies that Warner Brothers made. They had nothing to do with the movies that were greenlit. Those are the creative executives, and those are the senior vice presidents. We were all in the same executive building, but we were on the first floor, and many of them were on the second floor. But what was really interesting when I was there, so what we were, the point of management trainees was to sort of see how this all worked, and hopefully what we had learned working for Billy Young's department, we could take out, and we could eventually be unit production managers for other movies, and we would better know how to liaise between the studio and the individual productions, because each individual film production is like a business unto itself. And they're kind of the mission, and Warner Brothers, our department, was sort of mission control, and we were monitoring what was going on. I happened to be at Warner Brothers when the entirety of Bonfire of the Vanities happened. Boy, that was interesting, and it was a very interesting environment because I was young, and I'm running around the highest levels of a studio. And I was in and out of everybody's offices. I was delivering call sheets and production reports and taking stuff around and moving papers and copying scripts and sitting in on meetings or whatever it was I needed to do. But for me, it was the greatest education ever. I mean, it was incredible. There was one night, and everyone knew that I copied, whenever I was told to copy a script, I always copied an extra and saved it for myself to read. And what I would do is I had to copy all the scripts for whatever we were covering, and other people's script, when they needed to copy other scripts, I was like, I'll copy your scripts for you. And I would always slide an extra copy underneath the copy machine, and at the end of the day, I'd go take my scripts and take them home. But I have to say, one day, I was asked to stay late, and there was a meeting. I want to say it was in Bruce Berman's office, I think. Bruce Berman there was Bob Daly and Terry Semmel ran the studio, and there was Mark Canton and Bruce Berman and Lucy Fisher and Lisa Henson, and that group was running Warner Brothers at the time. Really great bunch of people. I get called one night to a very clandestine meeting, and I walk into a room, and there was director, I kid you not, David Lean. I know most people are going, who? The man who directed Lawrence of Arabia. He, at this point, was quite old. And I was given a script to copy, and it was a script for Nostromo. No, not the ship from Alien, although it's named after what the script was about. And I'll never forget Bill looking at me, and I think that he was like, I need to make 5 copies. I don't remember the exact number. And he looks at me and he hands me the script, and it was one of those moments like in a movie where he doesn't let go. You know, when someone's handing you something and they don't let go of it and you're holding on to it. And he looks at me and he goes, let's say it was 5 scripts. He goes, I want you to make 5 copies, not 6. I made the 6th copy, and he knew I was going to make the 6th copy. He just wanted to have plausible deniability in case it showed up somewhere like on the beach. No one cared about scripts like I did. But the thing was, at the time, what it really taught me is that studio executives, when I was there, Lisa Henson had I want to say she got some degree in like comparative mythology from Yale. Lisa Henson was Jim Henson's daughter, still is, but she was incredibly smart, and I used to hang out. After work, I'd go into her office, and because she had all the comic books, she was an imagination connoisseur. She was the imagination connoisseur executive. And she took me to watch the Academy Awards once in Amblin, Spielberg's Amblin screening room, when Driving Miss Daisy won. We're in there watching the Academy Awards. And she introduced me to Sam Raimi. But the thing about the studio executives, and it's pretty much the same now, is they were all business people. The studios wanted to hire Ivy League educated business majors that had usually a master's. And a lot of these people were scions of wealthy families, and they had great Phillips Exeter Academy, going on to an Ivy League college. But they didn't necessarily love stories. It was better to go work in Hollywood than go for a Wall Street brokerage. I mean, you could go be at Lehman Brothers, or you can go to Warner Brothers. What would you rather be at? Which Los Bros do you want to go to? Well, who doesn't want to go to? I mean, if you watch Robert Altman's The Player from I think it was 89, it was a lot like that. The executives were a lot like that. And the studio, Seth Rogen, his comedy series, there's a lot of truth in that, where the love of storytelling, believe it or not, is not at motion picture studios. Now, there's always one or two executives, especially my friends that work in TV, that will tell you, "Oh, this guy's an incredible executive." And I would say that of all the people that I've met in Hollywood, I would say that Steve Asbell at 20th Century Studios probably is the greatest story guy, and the fact that he's the co-president of 20th Century Studios is amazing, because he is an imagination connoisseur par excellence. And there's a reason why I call him the Quiet King of franchises, because he's respectfully brought back everything from Hellraiser, which was on Hulu, Alien Romulus, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, following up War of the Planet of the Apes, the Trachtenberg Predator films. I mean, who else would have got a greenlit animated Predator movie made? I mean, come on. And so you've got somebody like that, but there's very few people like that in the business. But they have to justify their jobs, and that's what Taylor Sheridan was talking about. Now, it hasn't changed. You know, the people that... And nowadays, I would say it's probably worse, because people have... My favorite thing that I ever heard in Hollywood lately was the problem with today's episodes of The Simpsons is they're all being written by people that grew up watching The Simpsons. Whereas Matt Groening and their writing staff, these are people that were activists or politically minded, or they knew a lot about the world around them, and they were filtering it. That's what their sensibility to create The Simpsons was. I mean, people forget Matt Groening used to do a comic called Life in Hell. You know, so The Simpsons was a reflection of the world and all of the concerns in it. And that's what the writers of The Simpsons were doing when The Simpsons was brand new. Well, now that it's multi-generations have grown up watching The Simpsons, the people that are making The Simpsons, and this isn't all, I mean, I'm just using The Simpsons as an example, but I would go back and say modern Star Trek. These are people that only have grown up watching other media. You know, they don't have many views that are unique to them. I mean, it used to be, the same is true of movie criticism. I mean, if you go back and you read Roger Ebert or you read Pauline Kael, these were city dwellers that were very much aware of the art scene. They were going to not just movies, but they were going to museums. They were going to salons or listening to people speak. And when you live in a culture center, you're absorbing all different kinds of material, and that informs your criticism. You know, you can equate certain things, certain color palettes of a movie to a certain painter. How many times do you hear that in movie criticism today? Not much, because look, people who have been fans like myself have been afforded an opportunity with things like YouTube to start talking about the movies that we love. But one of the problems, I think, with modern criticism of film is it's not really informed by the other arts. And movies are a culmination of all art forms. I mean, you know, do you know photographers? I mean, there's cinematographers are different, but there are cinematographers that have been influenced by artists or other or still photographers, or something like that. And I think our civilization felt a little bit more adult. Even the intelligentsia, the community that surrounded art and movies in, say, the 60s and the 70s, and all of the mavericks that sort of took over Hollywood after the studio system kind of fell apart in the 60s, you know, these were people that were well informed. And the kinds of movies they were influenced by were not just big Hollywood blockbusters. What does this have to do with Supergirl? Well, I'm going to get to that. I just want to see, first of all, if anybody has anything to say, and I wanted to catch up on some super chats, and there's quite a few. Jay Thisky says, I ran into Taylor Gonzalez at the Anaheim Comic-Con this past weekend, and it was awesome. Will you be attending San Diego Comic-Con in the coming weeks? Absolutely. This will be I can't even tell you. The first Comic-Con I went to was in 1988 when I first moved to LA. And I will definitely be there. I'm doing a few panels. I think I'm doing Chris Gore's panel. I have a panel at the Marriott on, believe it or not, I am moderating a panel on comic book variants from Canada with Kevin the Comic Doctor. So look for me there. And of course, we have our convention-ending panel, Starship Smackdown, that we've been doing for 25 years. I can't believe we're still doing it, but we're going to be there. Taylor's a wonderful guy, and I think he's always kicking the pants, and it's always fun. Last time I saw him was at CinemaCon back in April, and we had a great time. Aaron Patz says, what Marvel movie is Supergirl on par with? What Marvel movie does the next DC Universe movie need to be on par with? That's an interesting question. I have to say that I think, look, I am not a fan of the Marvels. I don't hate on Brie Larson, and I liked Captain Marvel. I didn't love it, but I liked it. But I think the Marvels was a more enjoyable movie than Supergirl. And I would say that my least favorite Marvel movies are Quantum Mania and Thor: Love and Thunder. And I think both of those movies have more to recommend than Supergirl. And the next the next DC Universe movie that's coming out is Clayface. So there's nothing analogous. I think if Clayface is a great body horror movie, people are going to look at it as an anomaly, and which is fine. But I will say this, since you're asking, I think all of us, and I don't know who's watching right now, so I can't speak for everybody, but I think that all of us expected an engineered DC Universe. A DC Universe, gods and monsters, that we were promised, like the Cylons, that they have a plan. And it seems apparent that there's not much of a plan. Like, I would have thought, like when you're making a great TV series now, the great shows really, whether they're 8 episodes or 10 episodes, the best series, I watch Star City, which is one of my favorite shows on. It's a tremendous show for those of you who, if it's your taste. But clearly, when you get to the end of episode 8, you can really appreciate how well engineered, how well written those 8 episodes were. The thought that went behind them. The writing staff of Star City knew the assignment. And you can see it when you're watching. You can experience it, and we got episode 6, then we have 7 and 8 coming, bangers. And you look at this, and that's what we want. We want well-engineered entertainment. That's what we're looking for. And we assume that the writers and the people that are making this entertainment, because let's face it, they've been making movies for 120 years, why are bad movies getting made at all today? Why are bad TV shows getting made at all? James Gunn comes in. James Gunn, Slither and Super, great $3 million movies. Really like those. Guardians of the Galaxy, really, really imaginative. Really enjoyed them. I loved his The Suicide Squad. But even I have to admit, I thought that Superman felt like it was a truncated version of a much longer movie. And I now wonder, it seems to me that the DC Universe is a little slapdash. I would have thought that they would have hit us, the Gods and Monsters phase of the DC Universe would have been well planned, well executed. Before they even started Superman, here's the Batman script. Here's the Wonder Woman script. We have Lanterns coming. We have the whole, basically what you wanted them to do is be building toward, whether it's a Justice League, whatever you're going to build toward, because that's, I mean, obviously the template is the MCU, is the first 3 phases of the MCU. And while the MCU had room to move, it was pretty interesting how they, and a lot of it, I'm not saying it was perfect, they were stumbling forward as well, but I think we all believed that the DC universe was this thing that was conceived to work like a fine clockwork. And that's what I was expecting. Maybe that was naive of me to think, but that we would be getting something that was really thought through and something that was really planned, and one thing built on the other. I thought that a Supergirl movie following Superman would take elements of that, and we were now moving off of Earth. Now, I know Tom King's comic was the basis of what was going on, and I understood, but I was thinking, okay, because anyone who knows anything about the DC universe, I grew up as a DC fan, there's the cosmic nature of the DC universe is more, I think, more. Does Marvel have a cosmic element to it? Yeah, you've got the Nova Corps. You know, you have the Shi'ar Empire, Lilandra, the Starjammers connected to the X-Men. Yes, but with the DC universe and the Legion of Superheroes in the 30th century, there's a whole pantheon of alien heroes from those comics. And you've also got, I brought it up the other night, you've got the New Gods, you've got Apocalypse and New Genesis, you know, the Fourth World, Kirby's Fourth World stuff that has wider reaching ramifications. And I would have thought that the Supergirl movie, first and foremost, from the engineering sense, that you're building a new universe, that Supergirl would have been the first steps to moving outward. Like, why would you go to these generic planets when there are so many interesting DC planets that have already been established for decades that we could have caught glimpses of? And then in the case of, say, Brainiac, like, I thought for sure there was going to be something at the end of Supergirl that would have teased Brainiac. Not because I need a post-credit scene, but not like that, but build something into the tapestry of the universe that will lead me to understand something about the future. What about Brainiac? Where's Brainiac coming from? There was nothing. There was no building blocks in that movie. As a matter of fact, other than the, I'm sure, shoehorned in, although I did, look, I loved David Cornsweet. I love him as Superman. I think he's a great presence. He needs to be more of the Man of Steel, and there needs to be more of a difference between Clark, but I can understand, you know, just for me personally, I kind of like the idea of and he doesn't have to be the bumbling Clark, you know, he can be the badass Clark from the Adventures of Superman TV series from the 50s. I love that Clark Kent. He will scoop another reporter and be Superman because he was a badass. But I just thought that if you're building a universe, that's kind of what we expected. What's interesting about people's criticisms of Doomsday coming up is that no one has engineered that bridge. No one's built the bridge. It's like, well, we had all this build-up to Thanos and all that. I would say that, and another thing, there's an inherent problem that I have. There's an inherent problem that I have with, look, knowing what I know about Doomsday, I can't fucking wait. All right? It's gonna be bananas, and I can't wait to watch. I literally cannot wait to sit in that theater and watch Doomsday. Is it the same anticipation I had for Infinity War and Endgame? It is not, because I know it's like a one-off. It's more of a super special comic. You know, it's a one-shot where we're combining everything. Even though I would call Doomsday a direct sequel to Endgame. But you know what bums me out about it, and this is going to seem strange. We all know, if you know the Marvel comics, you know what happened at Secret Wars. This world and the multiverse are coming to an end. It results in Battleworld, and then what happens there is that a new Marvel MCU, a new Marvel universe will be born. But you know who suffers in all of this? We do. Not the movie-going public, but the ordinary man on the street. I think the biggest problem that the MCU's had, the biggest problem, is that no longer are there human beings of any consequence. I mean, when you watch the MCU, when you saw the first Avengers movie, and when the Chitauri forces are coming through and attacking New York, you got a sense that there were people on the ground, that the city was full of people. Now, you know, in Thunderbolts, when Sentry shows up and starts causing problems, and you got a little bit of that, but I mean, when Arishem the Judge shows up at the end of Eternals and you're in London and people are all looking up, you kind of got a sense. But this was post-Thanos snap. And they've never dealt with the shock of mankind. And the one thing that they did in the first 3 phases of Marvel is you realize that these heroes were still part of the human race. I mean, you got to see Steve Rogers running through the city at the beginning of Captain America, the First Avenger. And you got a sense, I mean, even after the snap, and you saw it in Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home, the people are coming back, and you saw glimpses of it. But imagine if you're a poor human being in the MCU and you were snapped away for 5 years, and now all of a sudden you're going to look up in the sky and 3 worlds are converging onto each other, and the end is nigh. I mean, what a bummer. What a bummer for the people of the MCU. But, this movie's not really concerned. Doomsday really doesn't deal much with the man on the street at all. And I think that's kind of a problem, because if you don't feel the peril, it's like Project Hail Mary. I like Project Hail Mary. I didn't love it as much as I thought it was going to be the best picture of the year. I really like Project Hail Mary. But what Project Hail Mary was missing for me was Earth. Because in the book, we go back and forth to Earth. They set off nukes in the Arctic to start global warming. So as the world is cooling down because the sun is dimming, there's real peril. And Strat she's taken to court, and you miss that. And there was too much of that we're kind of the wacky comedy duo, and you lost the peril. Whereas The Martian, to me, is also, especially the extended version, is also close to a perfect movie. It really is. It's a great, great film. But I think one of the problems, an inherent problem that Doomsday has, at least from what I know about it, I haven't seen the movie. Obviously, watching a movie is very different. It's a movie that assumes and feels like the only people that are in this world are superheroes. Now, that's not necessarily... And just from how I experience what I experience and what I know of the movie, even in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, when you check in, you're at a wedding. Like Stephen Strange is at this wedding, and there's normal people that aren't superheroes, and you get a sense that there's craziness that happens that there's still bustling New York out there. And the superheroes would interact, because Stephen Strange is a dude. Like, when you met him for the first time, he's a doctor. Before he goes to Kamar-Taj, he's living in the real world. And you always get a sense of that. And I feel that it's a weird thing to say, but I do feel that that's what strayed away from the MCU. And Supergirl totally had this problem for me. We have no idea. We're supposed to believe that Kara is depressed and, I don't know why. She's only ever had people surrounding her that loved her and wanted to help her out. But what Supergirl was really missing for me, because she's already Supergirl, we already saw her in her Supergirl uniform at the end of Superman, how does she interact with the people of Earth? We don't know. And the movie, and this is a problem, I think this is a problem with The Mandalorian, and I think it's a problem where when our fantasy characters live in a hermetically sealed world, where you ask yourself, okay, even in Superman Returns, there's the great moment where Brandon Routh as Superman is in orbit and he can hear all the sounds of the world, and and one of the great things about Richard Donner's Superman movie is you're in New York that doubles for Metropolis, and you're seeing the hustle and bustle. I mean, how Rex Reed played himself in that movie. There's a Rex Reed cameo. And when you're in the Daily Planet, you're seeing all of these people that work in the Daily Planet. One of the things I thought was really missing from Gunn's Superman was a lot more Daily Planet interaction. How do you have Wendell Pierce as Perry White and not use him? Why was he not? Frank Langella was great in Superman Returns as Perry White. And, Jackie Cooper was great as Perry White in Donner's Superman. And, even Lawrence Fishburne was great as Perry White in Snyder's movies. And it's like, let's see more of this. Superhero movies, I don't think work. Not very well, unless, that's why the first Ant-Man movie was great. Scott Lang's a human being. He's interacting with human beings. The Supergirl movie, you're left with a bunch of unreal characters in unreal situations. These villains, why are they the way they are? There's no grounding in a reality. The thing about superheroes is, if you don't ground them in a reality, then they're not superheroes. Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Kara Zor-El, as depicted in Supergirl, you're trying to make her basically a troubled college student or whatever. Call her a senior in high school. She's one step away from the cast of Euphoria. But if you don't see her interact with the world around her, which we never do, there should have been a montage of Supergirl dealing with the real world and having social anxiety. She's not used to it. Imagine, I keep watching all of these videos, which I can never get enough of foreigners that have come to watch World Cup games in the United States. You've all seen them. They've taken over social media, having such a good time. We were sold a bill of goods, and everybody's been so propagandized by the media. People should remember that when they hear about other countries they've never been to, and when other countries are portrayed as being not so nice, they might want to think about how foreigners are looking at the United States now when they actually go and see, oh, wait a minute, we thought this place was a terrible place with terrible people in it, but it turns out there's wonderful people there. Now, there are other countries in the world that is the case as well. We should remember that. But I think that that's a big problem with Supergirl. It was a big problem with The Mandalorian as well. You never get a sense, other than, where I keep saying that the Walker, the AT problem, the all-terrain armored transport problem, where are those all-terrain armored transports going in The Mandalorian? They're just there because we want to have an action scene. But where are they going? If they're just walking through this canyon on this ledge because, that seemed like a good idea. Well, let's make up an action scene. Doesn't really matter why, other than there's Imperials and we have to come up with something interesting. There's no context. There's no credibility. There's no engineering problem. And with Supergirl, without any context, you're just watching Kara Zor-El, and the whole time you don't believe her. Because what she is she's a familiar archetype character of a human being on Earth, a girl with problems, a sad girl with the dog. You know what? She's like a lot of actresses I met in my 20s, to be honest. And I'll tell you, if you don't have that context, and I did think that was a real mistake as well with Superman. Some of the best scenes in that movie was Lois talking to Clark. That was a great scene. Not enough of that, and there was no return to that scene either. Setup, payoff. And I think we as human beings, we can watch movies about aliens and we can watch movies about all kinds of things, but we also have to have those stories anchored with other people, creatures that we can recognize. Supergirl doesn't have any of that. And Supergirl was a movie that existed in its own hermetically sealed world that did not convince anybody. We don't believe in that world. And that's a filmmaking issue. That was a screenplay and a filmmaking issue. There is no credible way, there's no credible world building in that movie. They cut all of it out, clearly. The movie was probably a half an hour longer. But then they realized they just didn't have it. They didn't shoot it. They didn't make it credible. And so you're watching this movie, and we, as an audience, we have nothing to grab a hold of. If they had had an opening 10-minute montage of Supergirl interacting with people on Earth and make it, I'm not saying make it guffaw funny, but show us how difficult she's having of time acclimating to Earth. Because you ask yourself, why does she feel, okay, she's known that her planet, it's not like it happened fucking yesterday. And Argo City might have just blown up. And I understand that. It's a harsh universe. But where she came from would lead you to believe that she would have different feelings. They imprinted her too much with Earth feelings. They didn't establish her as a citizen of the galaxy, which she is. You know what would have done that even more? Is to show her dealing with people on Earth. She's expected to be like Superman, save people, do this, do that, and she's like, I just am not this person. And if you had a montage of her interacting with normal people that she's saved, or just a montage, and show that she's just uncomfortable with it, then it becomes analogous of it shows the audience, we get her. A lot of people have social anxiety. A lot of people don't like to be in crowds. A lot of people have these problems. And if she, as Supergirl, isn't comfortable with the very people she's supposed to protect, we would have understood that as an audience, and immediately we like Supergirl, we like Kara, and we're with her because we understand her. You can't just open with somebody in the middle of a crisis, especially because she was having a crisis in the last movie. She was presumably, that's all she does is drink. She's unsympathetic. We don't get a chance to like her. And I like Millie Alcock. I think she's a really good actress. But the script didn't give us any time to like her. She's not sympathetic at all. And who's this movie for? Because at the end of the film, she has to go through some kind of a transformation, because that's what storytelling is about. And what are we left with? She straight up murders a motherfucker. I understand he's the villain, but she murders him. Straight up murders him. And we're supposed to think, oh, well, you've saved this poor girl. Like, you don't want to do that. Yes, she does want to do that. She watched this guy kill her parents and brother. She deserves her vengeance, just like the bride did in Kill Bill. Now, is it a bummer? But do you think Supergirl eased her pain by taking the... No. Supergirl should have known. It wasn't her place. And when she killed that guy... Kara Zor-El as a character moving forward? Nope. You can't be sympathetic to her. How can you like that character? I don't know. Anyway, let me finish these, and I'm going to finally get... I'm an hour in, and I haven't even got to the Supergirl part yet. Michael Patowski says, Rob, I don't understand why everyone thinks these comic book movies are going to make money anymore. People are over them. Well, they are when they're not good. Look, I don't think it's superhero movies. I think the problem with superhero movies is they've slid back into where they were in the 90s. They're not innovative. And why? Why do we love... You know what? Here's a case study. You talk about different movies. Let's look at Iron Man 1 as a template. What happens at the beginning of that movie? We meet Tony Stark. He's in the back of a Humvee. He's broing down with our military. He's funny. He's rich. He's charismatic. He's on the ground. He's in the shit with these people. 5 minutes into that movie, you love Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Tony Stark. Why? Because he, the superhero, is interacting with human beings, and we get it. We love him because he's one of us, even though he's going to become Iron Man. That's what Supergirl needed. As a matter of fact, if you look at most think about movies like, I watched Black Adam. You know, I didn't hate it. But it's like it's all this. It starts with the fantasy sequences and all this, and I even like Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Come on, Helen Mirren was having a great time in that movie. But again, there's so little of the real world in those films, and even in the Flash, I like the Flash. Come at me, bro. But the problem with the Flash is after the Flash saves, and you do see a little bit more interaction with Barry Allen in the real world. But the secret sauce, the special sauce that Marvel did so well, was these characters worked and lived in our world. The identifiable, recognizable, real world. That's why it's hilarious when Thor's, having drinks. and he throws the glass on the ground. He's having, when he's sitting there with Natalie Portman, it works because these characters are fish out of water. And a fish out of water story is inherently fun. No matter what, you take any person outside of their comfort zone and drop them into some alien environment. That's why watching those videos from of Europeans coming to watch the World Cup game and going to Walmart or Target or Buc-ee's, why are they so entertaining? It's fish out of water. It works every single time. I don't know why I'm gesticulating so much, but it's true. Anybody can make a great superhero movie if they understand that a great superhero movie has to exist in a world that we recognize so we can enjoy the superheroics. I mean, shit, man, I watched Hancock again recently. I'm like, not a great movie, but there's a lot of real world interaction, which is the best part of that movie. They understood. Tom is grateful. 1 of 3. Hey, Rob, given that nobody tries to make a box office bomb, do directors and editors ever realize that a movie doesn't work before it's released? Oh, yes. They know. They know, but, it's so weird to me because here's the thing. Once the train has started down the tracks, and if you think about how much money is being spent on these movies, you might be... I mean, it's amazing that they looked at Batgirl and said, we're not releasing this, it doesn't work. You'd think that a movie that they would know, but you know why? Because they don't really know. The powers that be, everyone's too scared to do anything about it. Can you imagine you have a movie that's budgeted at say $150 million, and you're 10 days into shooting it and you realize this isn't working? Who's going to be the one to pull the plug? That's a tough call. Nobody's going to do it because there's way too much money at stake. And how do you do that? Then what do you do? Retool? Everyone is going to think, like, I look at Supergirl and I'm willing to bet that the script had to have been better than what we got. And the movie was definitely retooled in editing because it just didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because that movie is not fun. Supergirl should have been as entertaining as fucking Barbie was from the same studio. But instead, you went an entirely different direction. Let's make Supergirl look, she's Supergirl. You can't make this character like, oh, woe is me. Let me drink. Even to the point of you've got to make Crypto pee on a newspaper. I mean, what cheap ass give me a break. Give me a break. And how do you pull that plug? I'll tell you, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. And then when you've gone down the road and no one's pulled the plug, you have what you have, and then you have to see it out. You have to. But I would ask. I mean, if you look at where Supergirl's at, yeah, it'll probably eke its way over. If Supergirl grosses more than $150 million worldwide, I would be very surprised. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. And Tom is grateful. This is 2 of 3. These days, it often seems movie makers would rather lecture at the audience rather than tell a satisfying story. That wasn't Supergirl's problem. Well, yeah, because nowadays everyone's trying to curry favor with all these other people, which, the problem is the very people that you're trying to appease by using certain language, by using certain representation, they hate you anyway. You can't win with them. We now have a class of people. I didn't see this when I was growing up. That have turned, they've turned victimhood into personality traits, or victimhood into their personality. When I grew up, no one would put up with that. It's like, oh, you poor little snowflake. I'm so sorry you're hurt. Now get the fuck out of here and get some work done. Fuck you. Now it's, oh, no. No. We have to be nice to everybody. Every kid gets a trophy. Fuck that. Every kid doesn't get a trophy. You're going to get a terminal disease and die. You might die before your time. You might have horrible things happen to you. We have turned our civilization into this weird, we're going to deny the reality of the world because we want everybody to feel good all the time. When did this happen? When did this happen? I mean, when I was a kid, my dad told me from a very young age, you know what? Life sucks. You're going to get punched in the face when you walk out that door. And I'll be here if you need me. And I'll put ice on your cuts and bruises or whatever. But you're going to get hit. You're going to get smacked around when you walk out our front door. You need to be ready for that. You need to prepare yourself for this kind of thing. We have a whole civilization now that is the exact opposite. And I don't know where that came from. Like Mr. Squirrel's letter, we don't have engineers anymore. You know, we have people that want to put cushions all over the room so they won't get hurt. What civilization, when the shit goes down, what's going to happen, man? I don't know. So, yeah, we have people that want to lecture people, and the very people that everybody's trying to appease are the first people that will turn on you. Look at young people and people on the left now. Yes, political violence is okay. If there's people that say things that we don't like, well, eventually it's going to be okay to hurt them. You've seen this playbook, the 20th century. We saw this played out over and over and over again. You can't appeal to these people. You can't make fake stories that have fake platitudes that are injected into storytelling in order to curry favor with the people in the civilization that are weak in the first place. Hit them head on. Stories should be challenging. You know what? When you see a great story, you should not think about, I feel so comfortable. You should feel elated by the danger of it all. You know, a great story should hurt sometimes. Not all the time. E.T. doesn't hurt. Although it hurts a little bit when you think E.T. died. But at the end of the day, stories should get in. They should get into you, into your psyche, and make you want to do better, go out and do great things. You know, I was thinking about my sister today, and it made me, this is so weird. This is how I think, okay? Alan Parker, the great Alan Parker, directed a movie called Fame, and it came out in 1980. And it was about 4 years at the New York School of Performing Arts. There was music, there was dance, there was acting, and it was all about the arts. And first of all, I loved it. It's incredibly well photographed. You have gay characters, male characters, female characters, teachers, people of different ethnicities all coming together to try and make something of themselves. And you look at this movie, and it's 1980, and it shows like, oh, yeah, that's right. We used to be a mature civilization with all different kinds of people represented in movies. But then somehow this victim class was born and said, no. But anyway, I won't get into that. But there's a scene in the movie where there's a girl who's not doing well. I think she's in the dance department. And she's really having a problem with her teacher, and she's just not very good, and she's not willing to put in the time that other people are putting in. And she's just not into it. And the movie makes you think that this problem is like she's suicidal, and she's she's waiting on the subway platform with her other classmates, and it looks like she's going to take her own life. It's a trick, though. And then you think it might have happened, and then the train goes by, and she's standing there, and she's just like, fuck it, I'll just try a new department. Meaning that all this Sturm and Drang that she was dealing with in this department, it wasn't working out for her. She's like, you know what? I'll pivot and try something else. I think that was cool. That's how I've always believed that life is. You know, I heard something today on one of those, scrolling through this morning when I was drinking my coffee in the morning, about the World Cup, and it was an actual like half-hour program. Some, View from Europe or something. I forget what it was called, but it was a half-an-hour program that was addressing this whole issue. And it talked about, like in Europe, they don't have the can-do attitude of Americans. Like, if Americans try something and they fail at it, Americans are like, fuck it, I'll try again. And it was saying that Europeans don't have that sensibility. And I knew that when I was producing The Hills Run Red, for Joel Silver and Dark Castle and Warner Premiere in Bulgaria in 2008 with Dave Parker. there was this girl that worked at the bar in the hotel that I was staying at, and her boyfriend. And I've told this story before, and I was hanging out with them, and they would take and show me the sights of Sofia. And we were talking, and she basically ran the bar, and she's really good at it. And I asked them, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to stay working at this hotel bar the whole time? And they said, no, we'd really love to open a cafe of our own. And I was like, that's a great idea. You guys would be great running a cafe, your own place. And I was like, terrific. And they're like, oh, no. We can't do that. That's not what we do. No one will help us do that. And I realized that is something we Americans have. Like, we'll just think shit up and go do it. And there'll always be somebody that will say, you know what? I'll help you. There's a Star Trek episode called City on the Edge of Forever, where Kirk is telling Edith Keeler that in the future there will be somebody that will say, let me help. And that those words might become more powerful than I love you. And Americans are good. Let me help. As a matter of fact, I've always thought that that's, you hear people that's the phrase that people want to hear the most. How can I help? I don't know. Anyway, Jacob Galbo says, Rob, a wise man once said that there is a better chance that the sun will explode than Supergirl beating Spider-Man at the box office. So true. So true. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Tom is Grateful, part 3 of now 4. Tom is Grateful says, Supergirl seems to just be bad, and I'll never understand the depressed superhero motif, even if it logically makes sense. Magic should always have fun, wonder. Fun and wonder. Sorry to hear about your sister. You once did an episode just for me because I was having a hard time after my dad left the party. I remember that. Yeah. And Tom goes on to say, I'm glad we share this bit of eternity. Thanks for making my world a little brighter. I don't like the world right now, but I'll stick around as long as I can because why not? I totally agree. And by the way, I do. I'm pretty much an eternal optimist. I used to tell people in high school, you can't be depressed and suicidal because the world can always get worse. And let's see how bad it can get. But on the other hand, I think the world, look, we're being tested. We're being tested now, as my friend Alvaro we were talking about this documentary, and America itself is being tested right now. Where are we gonna wind up? We will see. But I believe in the American experiment, and I think that these videos showing how Americans have embraced Europeans that are here for the World Cup should tell you something about Americans. Pretty good. Jose Taco says, you seriously need to write a book about your life. Well, I haven't written a book about my life. Well, I guess I have. So, I have written a book about Star Trek, and I did this after show. I did 13 episodes with Bill Hunt, an after show about Star Trek Picard Season 3. And I had this idea to download those transcripts and see if I could do something and turn those transcripts into a book of some kind. And it turned out that it became about my journey with Star Trek. So I've written this book. I'm trying to get it done so I can have some copies at the Star Trek convention in Vegas. I'll be hosting a panel there with my friend Jeffrey Morris. Jeffrey Morris has been on this channel with his documentary, The Eagle Obsession. And it was so funny. He contacted me out of the blue and he says, Rob, I've written a Star Trek book about what Star Trek means to me. And I think it's the kind of, and he didn't know I was writing a book and I didn't know he was writing a book. So my friend Jeffrey Morris wrote this book, A Future Askew. And it's all about what Star Trek can teach us. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. And I'm going to be doing a panel with him at the Vegas Star Trek Con about this book and about his movie, The Eagle Obsession. And it's great. And then, so I've written this book, and right now I'm editing the copy. It's 62,000 words right now. And I was very surprised that I ended up this. I didn't know what this book was going to be when I started it. And I'm pretty proud of where it's come. I can't decide whether, I'm not going to maybe I could send it to publishers. I wasn't thinking about doing that. I was just going to either self-publish it. You know, I have to take a page from Eric July, Young Ripa. Eric July, I think, did an amazing thing with Isom 1 and the Ripaverse, how he made his own 96-page graphic novel. He spent his own money, produced the graphic novel, made it, and then went out and sold it to his audience. I think that's what I could do. I'm going to make a hardcover. I'm going to make a soft cover. I'm going to make a digital download and an audio version of it that I'll read myself. And I might, crowdfund it. I'm going to have the book ready to go, though, so I can I was thinking about doing a crowdfund, probably making like 50 copies that I would sell at the Star Trek convention. They'd be special convention-only copies, the only 50 in existence. Then crowdfund the book and have the crowdfund end on the 8th of September, the actual 60th anniversary of Star Trek. And on that day, if you bought the book, you would immediately get the digital download of the book, and then I would send out the books through September. I don't know really what to do yet. I'm fiercely trying to copy edit the book now, and then I'm going to send it out to some people to read and get some feedback. So, yeah. So that is Jose Taco. It is kind of a book about my life. Ron H7474 says, if it isn't the notorious RMB, I've missed you, man. Been nugging out over at the Christian Harloff show where I have become infamous. So like more famous. Anyways, BBC lives. Well, I'm glad. Good to have you here. I've been here though. I haven't been doing as much, but I'm gonna get back into the swing of things. The Gist with Jared has been a member for 40 months. Wiley OFC says, Rob, my favorite movie is 1986 is The Color of Money. Well, money, what is it? Money won is twice as sweet as money earned. First of all, I love The Color of Money. I love that. I love it from the opening narration of Martin Scorsese talking about 9 Ball. I love The Color of Money. Would love to know your thoughts on the great Paul Newman and his obscure films. Watched Harper for the first time and loved it. Harper's great. Paul Newman did a really weird, I would call it a post-apocalyptic science fiction movie called Quintet that you should check out. Color of Money's great. Paul Newman stars in one of my favorite movies of all time. Of course, The Verdict. You have to watch Cool Hand Luke. HUD. I'm a huge Paul Newman fan. And our movie poster sale, the ongoing movie poster sale, I think we're going to drop musicals this week. I want to thank all of you. I don't know how many of you have bought stuff, but a lot of people have got some really choice pieces. A guy bought 3 of our really nice Bond pieces, James Bond, vintage Bond stuff that's like brand new. Pick those up. So if you go to eBay and go to the Find Your Niche store and then click on R&B's Imagination Connoisseurs, a lot of obscure stuff going up, more stuff going up all the time. But people have really gotten a lot of the great stuff. There's still a lot of great stuff up there, but man, I'm very proud of all the people that have gone to that YouTube or the eBay store, because man, every month I get the spreadsheets of everything that's sold. You guys have some great taste, let me tell you. A lot of good deals to be had. But yeah, Color of Money. Where's that 4K Touchstone? Come on, man. Give me a 4K of that. I love that movie. By the way, if you like that movie, it's a sequel to The Hustler from the 60s. And both of those books, different, but both of those books were written by a great author named Walter Tevis, who also wrote The Queen's Gambit, that the Anya Taylor-Joy miniseries. That was Scott Frank, right? Was it Scott Frank? Wonderful if you haven't seen that. And that writer, Walter Tevis, I want to say he wrote Man Who Fell to Earth as well. Did he? But he wrote a great science fiction novel that I want to go back and read it. I want to say it came out in 1980. He wrote a book called Mockingbird. And Mockingbird, I've never understood why Mockingbird hasn't been made into a movie or a miniseries. But same writer of Color, Money, and The Hustler. I heard a story, and it's apocryphal, and I can't even remember, but it was early on when I lived in so it was like the early 90s. I want to say I was talking to a producer, this woman this woman who knew Mockingbird, and I don't know if she tried to option it, but this is what she told me. She said she was in Beverly Hills, and she got mugged, and she had to turn over her wallet or money or jewelry or whatever, and because she's a snarky Hollywood producer, said, "Oh, really? Well, what do I get?" And the mugger, pulled out Walter Tevis's Mockingbird and gave it to her. And she read it, and she thought it was a wonderful book. I don't know if she'd ever tried to get the rights or option the book. I don't know, but that was a story that I thought that was interesting. Ron H. says, Campia getting awfully lonely not liking BBC. I mean, so many people love that BBC. I wish I had a BBC. They love it so much and take it in deep and intensely. Indeed. I love you guys. I do. Let's see. Ron H. goes, dude, my film of the year is Tuner. I have not seen it. I can't wait to see it. Little Dustin Hoffman coming back. I love the plot of that, the idea of them and the plot of that movie. I can't wait to see it. Get on it. I love it. Of course, being as small as it was, barely anyone watched it. I was going to go with Alvaro, and I didn't get to see it, but I really want to see it. Ron H. said, Rob, I loved Supergirl. Loved it. I am Kara. The universe just heaps shit on you sometimes. You fucking take it like standing on the chin. You scream into the void, settle down, and get to business. Yeah, well, you could have. I appreciate that you like it. I just think they could have told that story better. Joe Panora says, I am excited to see Terry's Vision Quest. When do you think we'll finally get a trailer? When is it even coming out? Vision Quest? I think all of you are going to love it. I hope all of you are going to love it. I hope I love it. But what Terry Matalas did with the 12 Monkeys TV show and what he did with Picard Season 3, yes, Picard Season 3 is not perfect because he's saddled with Picard Season 1 and 2. But Terry Matalas and his writing staff, people like Christopher Monfett and Sean Tretta, and I mean the people that he works with, trust me when I trust Uncle Bob when I say Vision Quest is something special. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's coming out in October. I don't know. It's October? Didn't they say it was coming out in October? I think that they're going to debut something at probably D23, I would imagine. I don't know. I think they're going to keep Comic-Con mostly movie only because I know that they're going to be pushing Doomsday and Spider-Man pretty hard. But Vision Quest is not something you are going to want to sleep on. FaZe Brownie says, hard to want to support DC right now when we could have had Justice League 2 with Darkseid right now with a similar budget to Supergirl, and it'd probably do great. Probably. But you know what? It's just another variation on a theme. Lawrence Atuk says, I wish, wow, with the $50 super chat, that's very generous of you. I wish they would have consulted with you before writing a script and while they were filming. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, that's the great tragedy of my life. Maybe I could have been a contender. No, but I'm relegated to working in my little indie space, which is fine. We have White Devils coming out, which I'm proud of. And of course my audio drama, you know, True Noir. True Noir, if you want to see it, True Noir, I co-created it. I conceived of doing it with Max Allen Collins and Mike Bodden. I directed it with a great cast of actors. If you go to truenoir.co, like TRUENOIR, truenoir.co, no M on the end, no com, just CO, and you can get that audio drama. You can either listen to it as one long piece or listen to it in 10 chapters. That, I'm putting forward what I think is good storytelling. Good writing, good storytelling, great characters. I made it. It came out earlier this year. If you want to see what I think, what I've made, I'd put that up against anything and say, there it sits. So check that out. But yeah, you know, it's I could have gone the route of being an executive, but I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to get in the shit. I wanted to make things, and I've been lucky that I haven't had a great, hugely successful commercial career, and most of the things I've made, True Noir is the first thing ever in my career. I know it's only an audio drama, but it's the first thing ever that I was able to conceive of, bring it to life, work with somebody, put a project together, and do it exactly the way I wanted to do it. Having never made an audio drama before, loving audio dramas, but I'd never made one, but I got to make it the way I wanted to make it. I wanted to finish it like it was a movie, just without pictures. So, if you want to see what I can do, True Noir. It might not be your thing. You know, you might not want to listen to a story that takes place in 1932 and 33, but if you've got a surround sound system, you want to hear something in 5.1, it's pretty dope, if I do say so myself. Tony Reyes has been a member for 51 months. Well, thank you. Artemis 793 says, Rob, I appreciate your live shows and digging your shirt. In your opinion, what should be the film that follows Man of Tomorrow? Well, I mean, I think they need to do, it really depends what they want to do. I mean, I thought that they were going to build out, what would have been interesting to me is you can have all these different kinds of movies with different tones, but the universe they're building out is the thing that's consistent. So, you know, in Clayface, you know somewhere that Superman happened, or you know that Supergirl happened, and the technology that Luthor was wielding in Superman, that's real. But the thing is, with the story that Clayface is telling, presumably, it's like any of us. You know, we all live in the United States, but really what you're really concerned about is what's happening in your own life. Like, there could be a cataclysm happening in New York City right now, but I'm here on the West Coast. It wouldn't affect me at all. I'd see it and read about it in the papers. You know, and that's what I mean by you build out a consistent universe where you believe that all these things are happening, but each story that you're telling can be very, very different. That's why in the MCU, people are like, well, why have the X-Men showed up? Well, because like the Battle of New York with the Chitauri, it happened in like an hour. The X-Men, unless you're watching TV, you're at the grocery store buying something, you come home to Gray Malkin Lane, and did you hear there's aliens in the city? Oh, they're already gone. They're defeated. So, but what would the next movie be? I mean, I think that what they need to be doing is they should focus on the Justice League. If I was making a new DC universe, I would focus and make every other movie about a heavy hitter, and in the middle, so you have a Superman movie, and then, you know, Supergirl, I guess, would be that interim film, but you got to make the interim film great. And then make another heavy hitter movie. So you can have smaller movies at the same time you have larger movies, and you go from there. I mean, hell, man, I would have made if you're going to go cosmic, make an Adam Strange movie. Make an Omega Men movie. You know, do something like that. But again, Omega Men would still have been 2 Guardians of the Galaxy, so it's tough, but I mean, I really think what follows Man of Tomorrow, maybe do another Superman movie and finish off that trilogy. You know, but I do think they've got to introduce Batman and Wonder Woman. We're getting Lanterns, so we're going to see Green Lantern. We have Hawkgirl, but what about Hawkman? I mean, is Thanagar in this DC universe? Because remember in the 80s when they tried to, there was all the Timothy Truman Hawkman with Hawkworld and all that. They were kind of retconning the whole Hawkman. It was weird what they did. It was weird. A lot of different Hawkman things happening. But yeah, I don't know. That's how I would do it. Big heavy hitter movies with a movie like Clayface in between each one. But they're building out a universe. That's what I would have done. Darren M has sent 5 Burnettwork gift memberships out. So yeah, Ron H goes on to say, I love Kara. I disagree with you. I am Kara. And I didn't ask for shiz to happen. It happens. And you deal with it while trying to stay good. She saved that girl. You want to let kids kill? Have at it, sir. Well, you know what I mean. It's not... When her parents died, she stopped being a kid. She witnessed her parents murdered. We've seen that happen in the world recently. Whole families slaughtered by brigands. But that's the thing. I get that. I understand that. But with the character of Kara Zor-El, you know, you also have a responsibility to the Supergirl brand. And you still have to make a movie. Like, if you were an 8-year-old girl, I mean, maybe some girls would like it, but I don't know if Supergirl would resonate with you and your mom as a nice afternoon at the movies. I don't know. But I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that you can't or shouldn't like Supergirl. If you like Supergirl, that's great. And I'm not saying, it's not my opinion, by the way. I'm a reflection of what has happened. The movie didn't work, it didn't find its audience, and it's lost a great deal of money. That doesn't mean you can't like it. You absolutely can like it. Hell, man, I was talking about I will die on the hill that Stone Cold is. Brian Bosworth, if you love action movies, this is Craig Baxley's masterwork. Right after I Come in Peace, he made this ditty. Lance Henriksen turns in one of the great villain performances of all time. The action in this movie is insane. Now, would I try and convince somebody that this is a great movie? Well, the answer to that question is yes. Because if you watch movies at scale, the way I think everybody should, what this movie tried to do was a smashing success. Maybe not at the box office, but for what it tried to accomplish, it's a huge epic win. Stone Cold, ladies and gentlemen. You can get it on Blu-ray or on 4K from Kino Lorber right now. Ron H. goes on to say, I wish all could see Supergirl through my eyes. Oregon Meat says, the world needs a fully articulated What Toys reunion stream. Well, Az and I will stream with Az anytime, anywhere. You know, you're not the only person who's asked to bring back Fully Articulated. That was our action figure show. Other people ask. So, I just haven't been spending as much money on toys. Ron H. goes on to say, forgive me if I'm being morbid, but given your extensive collection of stuff, what happens to it after you head to the big space dock in space? Good question. You know, I used to have a letter. I don't anymore. I threw the older one away. But I did have a letter in my desk drawer in case of death. And it was so if you open the drawer, it was like the first thing that you'd see. I need to do that again. Frankly, a lot of the stuff, people are going to be like, what is this? Like, what is any of the stuff you have here? I mean, it's, like I say, pop culture has a half-life of 20 years. And a lot of people aren't going to know what it is. It'll probably wind up in the garbage can. So, you never know. I don't think that's morbid. I think about that a lot. Ron H. goes on to say, and watch that cruise montage before the Digger announcement. I'm fucking in. I have no idea what it's about, but it frickin' looks kooky. Can't wait. Well, we saw a Digger presentation at CinemaCon, and it's somehow Tom Cruise plays an old guy, an old man, and he's a famous industrialist, and he makes mines, and something he did like in the Arctic is causing some catastrophic, it's a world-threatening catastrophe that his company has started, and he has to figure out a way to stop it. And when you see how he looks, incredible. I mean, he has no fucks to give in this movie. It's more transformative than Les Grossman was. It's a big swing. I hope it's not a miss. Jenna Ortega, 22, says, I love the Supergirl film. Millie Alcock is fantastic as Supergirl. Doesn't deserve these vicious attacks calling her ugly. Yeah, you know what? I think that's bullshit, too. I mean, she might not be your taste, but I'll tell you something. None of you would kick her out of bed. And she's a great actress. And I'll tell you something. I've thought a lot about, she is now going to have, coming off of House of the Dragon, she was fantastic in House of the Dragon. And now her career, early on, her career has been tremendously derailed by this. But I don't think the failure of this movie can be laid at her feet. I think she did the best job she could. I think she's a very, very good actress. And people calling her ugly, I mean, it's like, when was the last time look, anyone that's complaining about her looks or comparing her to other people, I'm like, when was the last time you kissed a girl? I mean, seriously, really? That's what you got? that to me isn't criticism, and it's beneath imagination connoisseurs to make that kind of criticism. It really is. Torn to Watch Studio says, Internet just came back. How did you like the Bullet in the Head 4K? I don't have mine yet. I don't have my Bullet in the Head 4K. And I don't know why. I did get my... I only ordered the Arrow version. But I did get my Wake and Fright, and I got Wake and Fright, and what else did I get? Something else. I ordered 3 at the same time. I ordered that. I ordered Wake and Fright. I ordered Bullet in the Head, and I ordered something else. I got the first 2 of them, but not Bullet in the Head, so I haven't seen it. Yet. I love that movie. John Woo's Bullet in the Head. It's so good. It's so good. So I haven't seen it. I don't own it. Ron H says, Picard Season 3 is the truth. Fucking awesome. Yeah, I loved it. I love seeing the characters come back. Ron H says, Rob, did you watch Is God Is? No. I was going to see it in the theater, and we ended up changing plans at the last minute, but I know it's on streaming now, and I can't wait to watch it. They showed us a preview of that at CinemaCon, not this year, but the year before. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Is God Is. I hear it's a great revenge story. Tony Reyes says, unpopular opinion, The Lord of the Rings is a better trilogy than the original Star Wars. Lord of the Rings is the very best trilogy. Yeah, it is. Do you know why? Because Lord of the Rings is I think it's better than the Man with No Name trilogy. It's better than the Star Wars trilogy because it was originally created as 3 separate books. It was created as a trilogy. So the Star Wars movies weren't. It turned into a trilogy. They weren't conceived originally. Yeah, all your Journal of the Wills crap. I know, I've heard it all. But it wasn't. Lord of the Rings was conceived as a trilogy, so the story works better. But I don't think it takes away. It's different than Star Wars, but I find Lord of the Rings to be far more satisfying on every level. It doesn't diminish the Star Wars trilogy for what it is, but Lord of the Rings was a real true trilogy. It was written as a trilogy. It was adapted as a trilogy. So, yeah. Torn to Watch Studio says, I'd rather see a film of a producer getting mugged and gets a book to adapt on film. That's great. It's a great story. I just was hoping one day we would see, again, it's Walter Tevis's book, Mockingbird. And, again, I don't know. There's all these books. I read Mockingbird when it came out. Mockingbird, the first paperback of it has like the Empire State Building on the cover, and it was like I remember it as being a very orange cover. It was like, I think it was Bantam. I love the art direction Bantam had. Elizabeth is calling me. Hold on a second. I'm live doing my live show. I'm literally live talking to you right now. Is something terrible happening? Or are you going to tell me the dogs are going to be in?
Huh? No.
Is everything okay?
Yeah. Just get the dogs before 1:30, please.
I will get the dogs before 1:30.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. So it had like an orange cover, and it had the Empire State Building, but it was dilapidated, and a lot of the windows were broken out, and the sun was shining through. I love that book, but I read it 45 years ago. I remember there's a character in that book named Spofford, which I thought was a really interesting character name. And it's about artificial intelligence. So, yeah, I don't know. Billy the Kid Lawrence says, hope to hear back soon in the Twitter DMs, my man. Oh, yes, I forgot. Billy the Kid, you know what? Since you reminded me of that, I'm just going to do that right now since you're here. Billy the Kid Lawrence has been after me to talk about a Kickstarter that all of us would find interesting. And since he's here now, and since I am remembering to do this now, let me just find him and read what he has to say, so he can feel that he wasn't tilting at windmills. Let me see if I can find where he is. Now, why can't I ever see? I'm always live and I can't find. I thought you were at the top of my... Why aren't you at the top of my... Oh, there he is. Billy the Kid Lawrence. Okay, let me read let me read you what he wanted to read me. I don't know how much you might be in the know of this, but way back in 2007, there were 2 lightsaber comedy short films written and directed by the Emmy-nominated Travis Bowles, who also worked on the fan film Ryan vs. Dorkman 2. These films were known as the 3 in the afternoon and 6 in the morning, and they got over 1 million views, with much positive feedback from fans. The premise is simple. What happens when 3 ordinary people have real lightsabers show up on their doorstep? And let's see. Here is the current best quality existence as one video known as 3-6, the complete saga. Okay. I have this link. Hold on, Billy the Kid. Let me put that link into the chat. So here's Billy the Kid's link. And I put it in the chat, and you can go find that link. At the end of 6 in the morning, they teased 9 in the evening, a third potential entry in said lightsaber comedy short series. Fans have dreamed of this for almost 2 decades and waited very patiently. Well, after nearly 20 years, Travis himself has started a Kickstarter to get 9 in the evening funded and make the dream a reality. Let's see. This would be a multi-chapter story that's bold and ambitious in expanding the narrative of what started so many years ago. I myself am simply a huge fan who has supported and talked with Travis a lot over the years about this potential. I donated to the Kickstarter recently, but I was wondering if you could help push all of this in some way and help get the Kickstarter funded even more. It would be a huge help as the campaign only has 20 days left, probably 10 days left now, to get the remaining raise of $26,173. We just need a few more big pushes. Loads of fans of old that may have watched 3 and 6 a long time ago might not have had the chance to find out about this potential new chapter yet, so more pledges and exposure would truly help out a lot. 3 and 6 are a gem of the internet days of old and legendary in the Star Wars lightsaber community. I remember these movies. I'd hope you'd maybe consider this, but if not, no worries. Much love regardless, and may the Force be with you. And I'm going to put the Kickstarter link also in the chat. So if you guys remember those, go help out if you want and see what that Kickstarter is all about. So there you go. How about that, Billy the Kid Lawrence? That's service for you right there. Kenny Crayley Jr. says, Rob, compared to other adaptations of Supergirl, where does this movie rank? For me, the Supergirl TV series is still number 1. Melissa Benoist, best Supergirl. I would say that too, because it was fun. I mean, this shows us Supergirl not at her best. And she straight up murders a dude at the end, so I don't know what that tells us. I think the Melissa Benoist, I thought she was a very good Supergirl. And the spirit of Supergirl, the way Supergirl was conceived, is more along the lines of that than what we saw in this Supergirl movie. Rob Lego Patriot has been a member for 17 months. Ron H., the patron saint of this episode of Robservations, says, dude, the Friday TKHS show is called Thrustin' into Media with BBC. If Chris is hosting with Winston, the edition is featuring Ebony and Ivory. That's very funny. Well, I love Chris Carr, and she's one of the stars of my audio drama, so I like that. 200 Watt Studio says, I would have liked to have seen Hawkworld, Martian Manhunter, Adam Strange, Commandy after Superman. All of those would be great. Or just Walt Simonson's Manhunter. I'd love to see that. Those are all great. Love to see him. Yes. Happy Console Gamer. Happy Console Gamer is one of my favorite people in the YouTube space. He says he sent me a major DM on Twitter. You know what? I haven't seen it. Should I look at it now since you sent it to me? Let me see if I can find it. Did you send this to me? Oh, it's an audio. Wait, should I play this now? Okay, yes. I now I got it. So the happy console gamer, like myself, is not happy today. As everyone knows, you can't really... I mean, look, this is a stack of discs right here that I haven't filed yet. I put them... Some of them... I put these in protective cases, like this. All my 4Ks, they're in protective cases. Sony has announced... I don't know if we talked about this on the John Campea show. Sony has announced that they're going to discontinue games on disc after 2028. The thing about this is physical media has been kept alive up till now because both PlayStation and Xbox had disc players. The PlayStation 5 had two models. You could get one with a disc player and one without. A lot of people that avail themselves of the PlayStation 5. I have a PlayStation 5 with a disc player in it. My PlayStation 3 was my first primary Blu-ray player back in, 2007? Was that in? 2008? Here's the thing. The mechanism to play discs was being kept alive by those console games that had the consoles that had disc players in them. A friend of mine told me 5 years ago, when PlayStation stops making players that have discs in them, the end of physical media is nigh, because no one's going to make players anymore. Already, many people that have made... I mean, I think Panasonic, makes players. Sony makes a player. I don't know if Pioneer got out of the business. And then you have some higher-end players, but there aren't many people that make Blu-ray and 4K disc players anymore. And it's not so much the software. The studios, Disney's practically completely out of it. They might release 1 or 2 or 3 movies, a year. There's just... The boutique labels are still going strong, but it's kind of the last hurrah for physical media. And when Sony made that announcement, I thought to myself, Johnny, this is it. This is the final end of physical media, and it's too bad. I mean, I'll be lucky to live another 20 years, and that's not morbid. That's just actuary tables. If I can hold out, I feel like I should be buying a couple more players and putting them away. But it'll be a bummer, because once you have physical media, there are machines, like if you've got the money, they're expensive. But if you all look up or look into something called Kaleidoscape, they're coming out with a new Kaleidoscape version. Kaleidoscape it allows you to rip your discs. It's an incredible piece of equipment. The whole company is really interesting. So look up Kaleidoscape. But yes, this Sony announcement was devastating. And, Grand Theft Auto 6, you get a box and nothing in it, which so weird. But I'm glad that I listened to your thing. Thank you for that. And thanks for looking out for me. But yes, Johnny, it's bad, bad, bad news. Let's see. Sandra Teller with a $20 super chat says, "Hi, Rob. I'm interested in your thoughts about Sony announcing ceasing production of physical discs for the PS5 in 2028 and how it may affect entertainment, especially since they were so influential with Blu-ray and the PS3. Well, like I was just saying, look at all these great minds thinking alike. It is devastating. Absolutely devastating. Ron H. goes on to say, the blood of heroes, or the salute of the jugger, as it's called, is the gem. You should have spoken about that. Maybe Bloodsport or fuck it, Jaws 3D. 3D, Rob, in 1983. 1983, you had Friday the 13th, 3D, Metal Storm, The Destruction of Jared Sin in 3D, and you had Jaws 3D. None of them were good. But they were in 3D. I saw, last Halloween, Friday the 13th 3D in the theater. In 3D. And the 3D is a lot of fun. James D. Michelle says, stay with Gunn for the DC Universe. Look, it ain't show friends, it's show business. And if they're not doing good business, there's going to be no DC Universe. Luckily, Clayface has a reported budget of like $40 million. It's essentially a low-budget horror film. Well, for a studio low budget. It's not, Curry Barker or Kane Parsons low budget. By the way, I am going to see the extended version of Backrooms in the theater Friday. I've got my tickets. Very excited. But we'll see what happens to the DC universe. Ron H. says, it was all a bunch of people walking. 3 movies of people walking to a fucking volcano. Name the film. Lord of the Rings. Answer right, you win a prize. No? Yeah, it was, but it's still great. S. Beam, who's been a member for 65 months, says, that will be such a disappointing day when there are no more discs for games and movies. Ron H. says, Metal Storm with a kid named Molly Ringwald. No. No. Metal Storm did not have Molly Ringwald in it. What you're thinking of is Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, also in 3D, with Michael Ironside as the Overdog. I think that was her first movie. So there you go. That's not a good movie either. Space Hunter. So I saw it in the theater opening day. Now, it's been 2 hours. Why don't I get to the big Supergirl story that I haven't got to yet? Would you all like that? Well, there was a great article in The Wrap. Let's get to it, shall we? Here it is. And now, this is in The Wrap today. This was written by Adam Chitwood and Humberto Gonzalez, the great Humberto Gonzalez. I haven't seen Humberto in a while, but I've always liked him. Where does DC go after Supergirl box office crash? This is some analysis, some good analysis. Let's get into it. It's DC deja vu all over again. After a promising start to a new DC cinematic universe with a Superman reboot last year, the franchise feels imperiled once more as the second film from James Gunn and Peter Safran's DC films, Supergirl, stumbled, grossing just $38 million at the domestic box office this weekend and netting poor reviews. DC fans know this story well. Zack Snyder relaunched DC with the largely well-received Man of Steel in 2013, only for the follow-up film in his interconnected universe, 2016's Batman v Superman, to be pummeled by critics and suffer a catastrophic box office drop in its second weekend. Another problem, look, I want to be clear. Another problem with Batman v Superman is some reports have that movie pegged at costing $450 million. No one will ever cop to that publicly, but that's what things have been reported because people thought Batman, Superman, it's $1 billion film. That's what they thought. It was not. So it was as much a disappointment to the studio as it was to the movie-going public at large. Trouble is, Snyder's stumble didn't come amidst Paramount's $111 billion acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery, a deal that opens the door to yet another shakeup. Snyder would later tussle with the M&A drama of his own during 2017's Justice League, with AT&T in the midst of acquiring Warner Brothers' parent Time Warner. Supergirl has a reported production budget of $170 million, and insiders say the movie needs to hit $315 million worldwide just to break even. Given the poor reviews and the current box office trajectory, that number looks like it will be very hard to reach. It's not going to even gross $150 million domestic. I mean, well, not domestic certainly, but I mean worldwide. It's a disaster with a capital D. The $38 million domestic box office launch is just a bit above 2020's female-fronted DC movie Birds of Prey, which opened at $33 million and managed $205 million worldwide, although its run was cut short by the pandemic. Indeed, for a new DC era, Supergirl is performing more like the latter DC films that marked the end of the previous regime's reign. Blue Beetle opened at $23 million and grossed just $131 million worldwide, while The Flash opened at $55 million and grossed just $271 million. Those numbers raise serious questions about the future of Gunn's DC cinematic universe under a new regime. His approach of highlighting lesser-known comic book characters, which worked wonders in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Guardians of the Galaxy, doesn't have the same appeal at a time when mainstream fans are growing wary of comic book adaptations, especially at high budgets. And while the genre has been struggling at the box office the last 2 years, even graded on a curve, the $68 million global launch for a Supergirl movie is not what the new DC wanted. While Supergirl didn't meet our box office expectations, it's just one component of a broader, long-term strategy at DC Studios that we remain confident in, Safran told the New York Times on Sunday. To make matters worse, Supergirl received a B- cinema score, indicating even the hardcore fans that showed up opening weekend weren't won over by the film. Its box office trajectory only gets tougher next week when Universal's Minions and Monsters is due to dominate the landscape alongside Toy Story 5. At this point, it's extremely unlikely Supergirl will match The Flash by the end of its run, let alone reach the over $300 million needed to break even. While not directed by Gunn, Craig Gillespie was handpicked to direct after he pitched on the project. Supergirl was chosen by him and Safran as the second DC movie as part of the strategy to build a unified approach to these comic adaptations. What unified approach? It was a somewhat odd choice made stranger by the fact that the cast failed to net any major movie stars to serve as an extra draw. The next DC movie, Clayface, a scaled-down horror riff that opens in theaters this fall, similarly lacks a movie star. Some industry insiders who spoke to the Wrap say that the problems run deeper than one underperforming film. All this is a Gunn and Safran production deal, one DC insider said of DC Films' current trajectory. It's not a brand. Announcing a universe was dumb. DC created an expectation and now you've delivered one Superman movie. With the Paramount-Warner Brothers Discovery merger looming, a top agent even questioned whether Gunn survives the fallout. I don't know how nervous DC is, but certainly James Gunn should be nervous, the agent said. There will always be a DC, and the current execs have survived previous regime changes, but I don't think Gunn survives. A Warner Brothers insider pushed back on concern over Gunn and Safran's larger strategy or any potential leadership changes to be made by Ellison, reiterating that they have a 10-year DC plan and Supergirl was just a single film miss. The insider said the studio is disappointed with the film's performance, adding the character didn't connect. Of course the character didn't connect. Who was this character supposed to connect with? Everybody already had. If you're going to watch these kinds of stories, you can see better versions of them with Zendaya dying on a couch. Anyway, that's not in this article. A Warner Brothers insider pushback. The single film, it didn't connect. Demographic data bears this out. 59% of the opening weekend Supergirl audience was male, and 65% was over the age of 25, which shows that the target audience for a Supergirl movie, Gen Z women, didn't show up. I would argue that the target audience of this movie was not Gen Z women, because if it was, they wouldn't have picked this story. I'll tell you something. Now, this is going to seem weird to say. If you look at Barbie was a movie that everybody could understand. I loved it. I thought what they did was a lot of fun, and it had social commentary, it had great acting, it had great actors having a blast. I thought Greta Gerwig did a great job, and Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig's script was really interesting. Look, you can call it girl bossy and emasculating and misandrist or whatever, but you know what? It was fun. I liked it. Now, what Supergirl needed to be was fucking fun. I'm sorry. Supergirl, as an established character that's been around for decades and decades and decades, you can do a Woman of Tomorrow story in the comics. Tom King can do that, and it works. But if you're introducing Supergirl as part of a larger cinematic universe, you better make that character fucking fun. They didn't do that. They didn't make her fun. And if you did, if you could make her a hot mess, you know who was more fun? Madison was more fun. Madison in the MCU. Madison was a much more fun character. Elle Woods in Legally Blonde is a better character than Supergirl as written in this movie. Millie Alcock could have played the hell out of a Supergirl. Like, make it like the fucking Legend of Billie Jean if you want to make a Supergirl movie with Helen Slater. I mean, fair is fair. That would have been something interesting. But this story does not work. It didn't work for itself, and it didn't work for the larger DC universe. It's a miss across the board, although I do think Millie Alcock was good in it. Even Lobo. Who is Lobo? I mean, people like we imagination connoisseurs, we know who Lobo is. Lobo in the pages of Omega Man. But you're like, no one else knows who Lobo is. Nobody knows. And you introduce this character, he just was like, well, okay, that's Jason Momoa. You've got to introduce these characters and introduce them. Have a cold open. That's why James Bond movies have cold opens. It gives you something immediately to jump into. This movie should have opened with the destruction of Argo City and all that. That's obviously how it was supposed to open. Then they recut it, moved it around, whatever. But it's not fun. The movie's not fun. You do not get any fun superhero action in this. You need her to be Supergirl before you can tear her down. That's just a thought. But there's no wonder Gen Z women didn't go see this movie. Why would you want to? You're not to see what? Your friends are already getting drunk and partying on Friday nights before they do their OnlyFans videos for their money, their money makers. They're shaking them on camera, and then they're going out with guys they hate anyway. And the real life is like Supergirl. So why would you want to see that? Supergirl missed on a lot of levels, the Warner Brothers insider acknowledged, while another studio insider underlined the biggest problem. You can't launch a non-A-tier superhero with a budget this big anymore. The bar for profitability is too high. Totally agree. You didn't need to spend all that money. I mean, character. You could make a great Supergirl movie with very little special effects if you wanted to. And the special effects, the battles in this movie were not unique. They were not fun. There's literally tanks in this movie. DC Studios was born out of chaos. After Gunn and Peter Safran took over DC in 2023, hand-selected by Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, they laid out their plans to finally make this work. It came at a fraught time for the brand, as Snyder's DCEU sputtered out after he was ousted during the making of Justice League, and a power vacuum led to its scattered strategy that at one point positioned The Rock as the center of its cinematic universe, although it was extremely short-lived. So when Gunn and Safran took over, they promised fans things would be different, namely because they would oversee everything. It's the first time ever that everything DC-related, film, television, live-action, animation, gaming, is all centralized under one creative vision, that of James and myself, Safran explained to the press in 2023. Where is that vision, Mr. Safran? Your vision's on display over with the Conjuring universe, which you're a big part of, but certainly not the DC universe. That's the frustrating part. I mean, you think about James Wan and the Conjuring universe, which Peter Safran's also a big part of. Well, that fucking worked. Look at how much money that made for Warner Brothers. And the DC universe is not nearly as cohesive. I mean, who would have thought The Nun and Annabelle and the Conjuring movies, and who would have thought that would have worked as well as it did? Well, Peter Safran and James Wan did. But, I mean, come on. Where's that same thought process? Gunn would take the reins himself. He not only directed the first film Superman, but also wrote the entirety of the HBO Max series Peacemaker, 2 seasons worth, and the animated series Creature Commandos. Gunn also touted lessons learned from his time at Marvel, saying no DC movie would ever be greenlit without a locked screenplay. Yeah, but then you hacked it to bits, and everything in that screenplay was not done very well. We're not going to be making movies before the screenplay is finished, and if that means our plan has to shift a little bit, then, well, that's going to happen, Gunn said at the same presentation in 2023. We're not going to be making movies and putting hundreds of millions of dollars into a film where the screenplay is only 2/3 of the way done, and we have to finish it while we're making the movie. I've seen it happen again and again, and it's a mess. I don't think the primary reason for the deterioration in quality of films today versus 20, 30 years ago. They laid out 10 projects that would make up the bulk of their initial launch, starting with the Gunn written and directed Superman. Superman was a resounding success. Gunn's casting of David Cornsweet, Rachel Brosnahan, and Nicholas Hoult was praised by all, and the film was a hit with both fans and critics, grossing $618 million worldwide and earning brownie points from Zaslav himself. The film was also notable for being the highest-grossing superhero film of 2025 and, crucially, outgrossing every single Marvel release that year. It's the first time this happened since 2008, when The Dark Knight grossed over $1 billion worldwide. But while The Penguin was a critical and commercial hit for HBO, the second season of Peacemaker failed to make much of a splash on the TV side, despite positive reviews, and some of the planned movies started hitting road bumps. The Brave and the Bold, a fresh take on the Batman, focusing on his relationship with the young Robin, and originally the second film in the lineup, was announced in 2023 but still has yet to materialize. To make matters more complicated, Matt Reeves' follow-up, The Batman Part 2, kept hitting delays to slow progress on the script, a matter outside of Gunn's control. Production is finally underway on the sequel, which stands outside the continuity of Gunn's DC universe, but is still under his purview and will hit theaters in 2027. But juggling development of The Brave and the Bold with Reeves' film was tricky. 2 Batmans at once? Probably not a great idea. Gunn also lined up Luca Guadagnino to direct and Colin Farrell to star in a Sergeant Rock movie. What? But the plug was pulled in pre-production. I mean, we knew that. We talked about this before on the John Campea show, but why would you want to make a Sergeant Rock movie? That's essentially a World War II film. Due to script issues, the film remains in development but will not move forward with Guadagnino, Gunn said. And then there's Supergirl. What went wrong with Supergirl? The development of Supergirl, by most accounts, went pretty smoothly, but a red flag may have been raised when the production had trouble securing an actor for the movie's villain, Krem. Several A-list actors passed on the role, according to several knowledgeable insiders, and Gillespie opted to cast Matthias Schoenaerts in the role. While not necessarily a household name in the U.S., the hope was that the Belgian actor would help draw in some of the international audience. Given the film's paltry $30 million international box office, that did not happen. It didn't happen because he was written terribly. That villain was one of the most not fun. Look, people, if you're going to make a movie that has a bad guy in it, the bad guy has to be delicious. Delicious. You got to give me Vader. You got to give me Hans Gruber, leader of the West German Volksfrei movement. I am an exceptional thief. Give me a great villain. Give me a villain that's badass. Give me James Bond movies. Even when Michael Lonsdale played stuffy-shirt Hugo Drax in Moonraker, when he says, "Take care of Mr. Bond. See that some harm comes to him." Come on! That's some fun shit! And at the end, when he's on his space station and Bond throws him out the airlock, it's fun. If you're making a superhero movie, you can't have a somebody with the Mad Max aesthetic. I understand Gillespie's he's an Australian American, but going from Mad Max in a DC movie that's following up James Gunn's Superman? Come on, dude. And your character he's not in the right movie at all. The tone of that villain and the brigands, oh my God, not good. So it wasn't the villain's problem. That was the least of the movie's problems, but it was a big problem though, still. Combined with relative newcomer Millie Alcock in the titular role, the film lacked the star power that propelled a big opening weekend for something like Batman vs. Superman, Ben Affleck, or even Man of Steel with Amy Adams, Kevin Costner, Diane Lane, and Michael Shannon in past DC permutations. The biggest star in Supergirl is Jason Momoa, who played Aquaman in the previous iteration of the DC Universe and now lets his freak flag fly as the unpredictable DC Comics character Lobo that nobody knows anything about. They don't know where his planet is, they have one line of dialogue. He needed an introductory scene. But his inclusion was seen by many as a transparent attempt to woo men to see the film and a concern that women alone could not carry the movie at the box office. This, despite the fact that 2017's Wonder Woman was critically praised and grossed over $800 million. But that female-fronted superhero movie was also directed by a woman, while Supergirl was not. Look, I think Craig Gillespie is a great director. He was the absolute wrong choice for this movie. Absolute wrong choice. The scathing reviews for Supergirl didn't help the Rap's critic, who dinged the muddled action and casual sexism of Momoa's Lobo. What's next? Hitting theaters this fall is Clayface, a horror-tinged DC movie at a much lower budget of around $40 million. The film was not part of Gunn's initial plans, but it jumped the line when acclaimed Dr. Sleep and Haunting of Hill House filmmaker Mike Flanagan submitted a script he wrote on spec. Flanagan was too busy to direct himself, so the project went to Speak No Evil filmmaker James Watkins and subsequently went through script revisions with Hossein Amini, who wrote Drive, earning a screenplay credit. Welsh actor Tom Rhys-Harries stars as the comic book character who is transformed into a literal clay man, gaining the ability to shapeshift. The supporting cast includes Max Minghella and Naomi Ackie. The Warner Brothers insider told The Wrap that the studio is high on the movie, the trailer's banger, which this individual described as terrifying. Gunn is in production on his Superman sequel, Man of Tomorrow, which brings back Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor to team up with Corn Sweat Superman to fight off the big bad Brainiac. Yet again, he cast a largely unknown actor in the prime villain role, German actor Lars Edinger, but the studio and fans are high on Man of Tomorrow, with the internet pouring over every set photo snapped of Nicholas Holt in his mech suit. There's also the animated film Dynamic Duo, which pairs Batman with a young Robin. The first footage made a splash at the Annecy Animation Film Festival last week. That's in France. Also on the animation front, Creature Commandos is returning for a second season. Perhaps the buzziest DC project on the current docket is Lanterns, an HBO series starring Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre that's been described as a true detective-like take on the Green Lantern mythology, premiering in August. Adding a heap of goodwill to the project is the involvement of Damon Lindelof, who spearheaded the Emmy juggernaut DC adaptation Watchmen for HBO a few years ago. Thanks for giving Don Johnson, though, more time on TV. He needs it. I love Don Johnson. After that, it's unclear. An individual with knowledge told The Wrap that DC is prioritizing a Bane Deathstroke movie, but the project doesn't have a director or a cast lined up yet. And while Man of Tomorrow is due to hit theaters in July 2027, it remains to be seen how Ellison will survey the DC landscape if he takes over Warner Brothers, and how heavily he may be inclined to shake things up. For now, Supergirl appears to be dead on arrival. All eyes on Clayface. Umberto does a good job. That was a good article. I mean, pretty much sums everything up. By the way, why don't they take that Deathstroke Batman script out that Ben Affleck was going to direct and be in and make that into the movie? Hell, man, I want to see that. I don't understand this, to be honest. Where is the grand plan? The grand plan never existed. It fell apart. It seems to me, I mean, the old adage, no battle plan survives direct contact with the enemy. Or no plan survives getting punched in the face, however you want to deal with that. It's disappointing to see this happen. I mean, I've been reading comics my whole life. I don't like to see bad comic book movies. You know, I like to see, give me I thought Eternals, I liked Eternals. It's not a great movie, but I liked it. I liked it more as a science fiction film. I wish it could have been better. I wish they had a follow-up for it. It could have been a lot more interesting than it was, but there's things in it that I really, really like. It was interesting. And Gemma Chan. But I just think that we need, especially now, if you're, here's the thing that kills me. We have great examples of incredible genre writing. Just this past weekend, Star City, the 6th episode of Star City, and the 2nd episode of House of the Dragon, Season 3. The first 2 episodes, if they had released House of the Dragon, Season 3, Episode 1 and 2, as one long 2-hour and 20-minute feature film, would have been one of the best movies of the year. I mean, if that's all you saw, and it ended with Rhaenyra where she winds up. I'm watching this stuff, and I'm thinking, Ryan Condal and the boys over it, I know he had his problems with George R.R. Martin, but you're looking at this going, these people are cooking with gas. And the writing staff of Star City, and I know what's going to happen in the next 2 episodes because I already saw them. This is what planning does for you. This is what a crack team of writers does for you. Why, when you've got almost $200 million at stake, we get a film like a Supergirl, which has, by the way, I don't want to slam on I don't know anything about the background of our writer, but this is her only feature credit. Apparently she's been a script doctor. I don't know what's up with that, but this film, there's nothing about this film I think that really works in terms of making it palatable for anybody. I mean, if you're looking for structure, look at Iron Man 1. Go emulate that structure. You know, you've got to, a superhero needs to be shown in relation to the rest of humanity, because otherwise they're not a superhero. This is what I think is something that you cannot forget. Superheroes are humans or humanoids that are larger than life, that are better, faster, stronger than we are. But if they have no relationship to mankind in their movies, then they're not superheroes. Because the only way they can be considered superheroes is if they are somehow reflecting humanity. And we have never seen Supergirl on Earth relating to any human being. So why are you calling her a superhero? She's a fucking alien, is what she is. Until she's superheroic on Earth and she does something for mankind and humanity at large, then she's nothing. She doesn't have an identity as Supergirl, the niece or nephew or cousin of Superman. And that's really the problem. And if you're making a DC universe, you damn well better show Supergirl interacting with us here on Earth before you send her off into the cosmos on some damn fool idealistic crusade. That's the biggest problem with this Supergirl movie. We don't know you. We don't know you. And you can't, just like we don't know Lobo. And you can't expect an audience to embrace characters that they don't know. And the movie did nothing to... That movie does nothing to endear any of the characters to us. You know what? What's interesting about Supergirl is it just expects everybody to love Lobo because Jason Momoa's on a motorcycle chomping on a cigar. I get it. But you know what? That character could endear himself a lot more to us if he had a killer opening. If he did something really outlandish. I mean, look, Lobo can fly through space on that fucking thing, but you've got to give me something exciting. You've got to give these characters great introductions. Think about how Supergirl opens as a movie. We saw her as a drunk. It's almost like she stumbled out of the Fortress of Solitude into this movie. Well, she's not a hero. She's not a hero. She's done nothing heroic. And although she's helping a girl along the way, and how this is a fundamental thing about superheroics. If a character doesn't do anything super, they're not a superhero or superheroine. And that was the big problem with Supergirl. And the movie, you know what's fun? Superheroics are fun. We want to see that kind of cool shit. Give me Spider-Man. Bring it on. And give me a movie like Doomsday, which, you know what Doomsday knows? Doomsday knows it's supposed to be fun, even though it's about the end of the multiverse and the destruction of all things and the end of time, everything that they were fighting against in Lord of the Rings. Well, it could be the end of all things. Well, that's what Doomsday's about, but I'll tell you one thing. Doomsday's going to be a hell of a lot more fun than fucking Supergirl. I mean, when, the 3 witches are dressing Doom, and he walks out on the Doomstad, and he addresses his people at the beginning of that movie, or as I suspect they're going to stick it at the end of fucking Endgame Encore. It's fucking dope. You're like, fuck yeah! That's what it's gonna be like. Now is our time. You know, what is it? Now is the winter of our discontent. You're gonna get that shit right up front of Doomsday. Fuck yeah! It's gonna happen. Well, I think they're gonna restructure it for time. That's just me. But take it from your old Uncle Bob here. There's a cool scene where we first meet Doom in fucking Doomsday, and it's rad. And I'm like, fuck yeah! That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. So, give it to me. And they're going to. And it's going to be great. And I can't wait to see Doomsday. I can't wait to see what the Doomstad looks like. What do the people of Latveria look like? I can't wait. I can't wait to see Doomsday. I cannot wait. Everything in that movie is just fucking jaw-droppingly cool. I don't care if you're spoiled. What does it look like? I can't wait. I cannot wait to see Doomsday. And I am not a paid Marvel shill. I am not. I wish I was. I could use the money. But, Supergirl. If you make a superhero movie, you got to establish a superhero first. If you want to deconstruct that superhero, you can. You want to make Tony Stark a drunk and play Demon in a Bottle, you can do that. But at least you got some fun shit. Like he shows up at a big Iron Man at the beginning on stage, shows why he's Iron Man. Fuck yeah. This is not rocket science. But you know what? It's because the people in power just don't know, and people are too scared to get in the mix and be like, hey. Look, all great movies have a creative frisson that has to happen. You know, it's you're questioning yourselves all the time. And you need to really examine this stuff. And James Gunn says, well, we're not going to move without a script. You moved without you made a movie about Supergirl, and she's not super heroic. I mean, not really. Yeah, you see the standard, hey, so somebody's going to try and rob your space bus, and she, kicks the... That you might as well have Dirty Harry Callahan on your space bus. I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, look, man, I don't know. I don't know what more there is to say. Let me see if anybody's sent in any more super chats. Look, my advice, if people are going to make superhero movies, you got to make superheroes super heroic. That's like step 1. Let's do that. Let's see. Ron H says, you are correct, Space Hunter. I love that also. That's good. Ron H says, well, Rob, it was a slice. Be good, man. Take care. Well, listen, Ron, thanks for all the support tonight. It's been fun to have you. Sir, and you sleep well. Sir Lance in Pants says, have you watched the new Werewolf trailer that was released this week? It had my jaw on the floor. It's my most anticipated film of the year next to Doomsday. Bro, that trailer was dope. I've watched it like 6 times. Go Robert Eggers. I've loved Robert Eggers since I saw The Witch. Now, I know The Witch is not they don't think it's the most scintillating horror movie. I was blown away by that movie. I was blown away by the sense of dread and the atmosphere and the period, the evocation of period. The Witch is great. And come on, The Northman? The Northman should have been everyone's favorite movie. That movie rocks. I'm a huge Robert Eggers fan. The Lighthouse, God bless him for making it. I didn't love Nosferatu as much as I wanted to, but again, I love Robert Eggers working in period, man. He's got a vision, he's got a dream, and Werewolf looks like the culmination of everything he's learned. I cannot wait. WraithX7 says Supergirl flopped because we already got a good live-action Supergirl for free on TV several years ago with decent special effects. I don't think you're wrong. And I think people tend to forget that. And I wonder if Craig Gillespie ever watched an episode of that show. This is, by the way, another problem. I think I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Craig Gillespie never read Woman of Tomorrow, the source material, where, hey, your villain, why didn't you go with the villain from the comic book? You know, comic books are known for their artwork and creative design. If you're adapting a comic book, I mean, look at the art in that book. Why don't you make the movie look more like that instead of like, George Miller Light or George Miller Dark because the cinematography was murky? DBZZ now. Supergirl is a C-list character that most people believe is a Superman clone. When they showed the more modern approach, it failed to resonate. I agree with you there, but you can make the character great. You can make that character great. You really could if you wanted to. Norwegian Kryptonian, who's been a member for 62 months, says, why is Zack Snyder still getting blamed for the old DC failing? He basically made 2 movies before Warner Brothers started making new decisions. Justice League theatrical, Wonder Woman 2, Harley Quinn, Flash, etc. I know. I mean, he shouldn't get all the blame. It's like, look, I think the problem with like Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, a movie I thoroughly enjoy watching, there's no joy in that movie. That movie is so fucking dour. It's no fun. I mean, yeah, it might be fun to watch Wonder Woman. I love that theme. I love when she shows up. I love her interplay. Shit, man, I would watch Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice if it was just Diana Prince, Bruce Wayne, and Clark Kent wandering around in bespoke suits, and they never put on their costumes, and there's some kind of intrigue going on there. That was when the movie was cooking. And then they had to bring Doomsday into it and have this big battle, and Martha, and they had exploding bottles, exploding mason jars of piss. I mean, what? I get it, but it is not a joyful film. And I liked it, but I can understand, like, Zack Snyder had a particular take, and I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. As a piece, as a certain piece of operatic, superheroic fiction, Zack Snyder's... I don't care. Everyone talks about, well, I wish he could have... Look, if he finished that story, it would have been the same shit. Guess what? Darkseid would have lost. I mean, it wouldn't have been that interesting. So it's kind of nice. We have a trilogy. We can all imagine in our minds what that battle would have looked like. And you can go back and read Mike Mignola's stories, or you can go read any number of stories about the anti-life equation or whatever you want to read. But you have a trilogy of movies that if you watch the Ultimate Cuts or whatever, the Man of Steel, the Justice League, whatever, those 3 movies are a singular vision. It's a great trilogy of films. It's not for every taste, but they exist and you can watch them, and it's pretty good. It's pretty interesting. DBZZ now says, all respect to George R. R. Martin. He's not a screenwriter, and the material is based on his historical accounts, not definitive. I love what Condell is doing. I do too. It's fucking dope. It's this season. I mean, I don't know. We're 25% done with the new season of House of the Dragon. Chef's kiss. It's amazing. Laserbeam Hawkins has been a member for 28 months. Thank you for that. Destiny Captain says, my 29-year-old son died in 2020, Rob. I understand. I'm very sorry to hear that. Very sorry to hear that. Hulk Trekker, wouldst thou like to live deliciously? Come on, man. Black Phillip. Why did Black Phillip not catch on? I've got shirts. I got Black Phillip shirts. I got Black Phillip coffee shirts. Black Phillip is great. Sid Dooku says, that Wonder Woman theme, Rob, Hans Zimmer. It's so good. And it's Tina Guo. You know, I don't think there's a hotter image of a female in the 21st century than Tina Guo ripping on her electric. Whenever she's playing live shows with Hans Zimmer, I mean, she looks like a woman possessed. I love that. I mean, it's so cool. She just has raw talent to burn, and that riff is dope. It's so great. It's so great. And again, how do you go from Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman movie, to Wonder Woman 84? I was really excited about Wonder Woman 84. Everything about that movie is not great. Anyway, what can you do? I haven't even checked to see if there are tips. Sonny Dominguez says, what are the chances Sadie Sink role in Spider-Man is Mary Jane Watson and not Jean Grey, as has been speculated? That's interesting. I don't think I don't want to say anything definitive. I mean, everyone's just like, it must be Jean Grey. But to me, I'm in the wait and see camp, because if she's got to be Jean Grey from another universe, Jean Grey in a Spider-Man movie, I don't know, again, but she seems to be too powerful to be just a Mary Jane. But that is interesting. Darth Plato says, no plan of operations extends with any certainty beyond the first contact with the main hostile force. That's the actual quote from Prussian Field Marshal Helmuth von Moltke the Elder. That's a lot of name. I don't know how to pronounce it. Moltke? No plan of operations extends with any certainty beyond the first contact with the main hostile force. Well, that's why Darth Plato is the official philosopher and historian of this channel. Faze Brownie says, DC did Henry Cavill dirty after Black Adam. Oh, I agree. Totally agree. He was a great Superman. But anyways, everybody, this show's gone on for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I want to thank you all for being here. This is a lot of fun. It's the first show of July. I plan to be on a lot this month and the following months. I've really been enjoying doing these more editorial-driven shows. But yeah, and I'll tell you more about my Star Trek book called The Future is People. And hopefully it'll be coming up soon. And also, I want to get on to look, my dream is to do a series of books called From the Robservatory. And I'm going to dig into a lot of the shows I've already done and use the transcripts of those shows as the basis for some shows, some books, and expand them outward. Kind of like I started just thinking about doing a book that was an expansion of my look at Picard Season 3, and suddenly it took on this kind of memoir. I'm journeying through the Star Trek franchise, but it's really about a lot more things. So, Home Joe says, do you think the DC Universe will eventually explain how Peacemaker is connected to Man of Tomorrow, since the way it ended in Season 2? Maybe. But again, do we really want that? I mean, shoehorning Peacemaker into... Maybe. I mean, I did love Peacemaker's brief cameo in Superman. I thought that was hilarious. It made me laugh. But I don't know. It depends. Again, it depends how it's done. Depends how it's done. And everyone, on that note, I'm going to end this show. And I want to say thanks to all our moderating staff. Thanks to Darth Plato and Tom Jr. Jackson and everybody. I want to thank everybody for the financial support they give this channel via super chats and tips and memberships. We had a great member call last week. I think maybe I'm going to do another one. Maybe the 4th of July is Saturday, so no, probably not. Well, Let's Get Physical Media is back. We will do a membership call the week after then, but that was fun. So for you members, the member calls are a blast. And other than that, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to everyone, thank you for being here. And I was going to say something cheeky, but I forgot. And I'll see you back again. Have a better night, and I'll be on the John Campea Show tomorrow.